Chapter 960. You don't have to worry about that. With your alchemy skills, it won't be difficult for you to get the true extreme Dao fruit from Lujiesheng, Cheng Ho Tian said with a chuckle. Without waiting for Ning Cheng to ask for the reason, he explained in detail. Every pill discussion assembly, powerhouses from all sides would come to the Heaven Essence Sacred City to accept Lujiesheng's invitation. They had also accepted this invitation for the Dao fruit. Because Lujiesheng has a fantasy fruit garden, there are countless Dao fruits inside, and the true extreme Dao fruit is one of them. That's why I said you don't have to worry about the true extreme Dao fruit. Ning Cheng felt even more puzzled and asked, Brother Hotun, Dao fruits are so precious. Moreover, the Heaven Essence Sacred City Master Mansion has a fantasy fruit garden. Can he keep it? The Grand Essence domain had as many experts as the clouds in the sky. No matter how strong Lujiesheng was, he was just one person. Even the Elixir Association would not let go of the Illusion Garden, let alone the other sections. Cheng Ho Tian chuckled. Don't underestimate Lujiesheng. He is a peak primordial Dao expert and is only one step away from the primordial Dao realm. Moreover, the fantasy fruit garden was the same in anyone's hands. Because even if it's in your hands, you can't enter it. It's not like what you think, where you can pluck Dao fruits whenever and wherever you want. Ning Cheng even heard about Lujiesheng inviting many powerhouses and alchemy masters to participate in the City Masters Banquet from Sword Tri-Mountain. Naturally, he was not clear about these matters. The Fantasy Fruit Garden is not something that can be opened by force. To open the Fantasy Fruit Garden, one must be a Dao sculpting pill deity or above alchemy Dao powerhouse. The Fantasy Fruit Garden is divided into many levels of divine herb gardens, and the gates of these herb gardens must be opened with freshly refined pills. Open the spiritual medicine garden with the refined pills? This was the first time that Ning Cheng had heard of such a thing. Cheng Ho Tian nodded. The first level of the medicine garden is filled with Dao sculpting level God spirit herbs. There are only 12 doors at this level, and each door has 12 pill grooves. Only an alchemist who can refine 12 special grade Dao sculpting divine pills within a specific period of time and embed all of these pills in the groove of the door can open this door. After the door opens, can everyone go in? Ning Cheng asked. Of course not. Only the alchemist who has refined the pill can enter. It is impossible for a second person to enter. After the Dao modeling spirit medicine garden, there was the Dao birth spirit medicine garden, which was a higher level. If you want to go in, you have to concoct Dao birth divine pills. Similarly, you need special grade divine pills to open the door, Cheng Ho Tian explained. Ning Cheng finally understood why Sword 3 Mountain did not tell him about this. It should be because Sword 3 Mountain knew that the two of them would not have a chance. As such, even if he told them about it, it would be useless. A Dao transformation alchemy deity might not necessarily be able to refine a cauldron full of special class Dao sculpting divine pills, let alone within a specific period of time. Cheng Ho Tian continued, I heard that this illusion garden has a total of 6 levels of entrance doors. The first level has 12 doors, the second level has 9 doors, the third level has 6 doors, the fourth level has 3 doors, the fifth level has 2 doors, and the sixth level should have 1 door. Ning Cheng immediately grasped the meaning of Cheng Ho Tian's words. Brother Ho Tian, what do you mean by the 6th level should be a door? Cheng Ho Tian sighed and said, the 6th level's door should contain Dao transformation Dao fruits. Since the illusion garden opened to this day, no one has been able to enter the 6th level's door. 1 door means that only one person can enter. The premise is that this person can refine 12 special class medicinal pills to open the door in the first furnace. In the Grand Essence realm, no one can casually refine a batch of special class Dao transformation Dao pills. Doesn't that mean that only 12 people can enter the first level of the spiritual medicine garden? Ning Cheng couldn't help but think about the many pill gods who came to the Heaven Essence Sacred City. In his heart, he couldn't help but wonder about the distribution plan. Whoever could refine it first would enter first, right? Hearing Ning Cheng's worries, Cheng Ho Tian smiled and said, Brother Ning, you can rest assured. These 12 doors are more than enough. It's not easy to find 12 pill deities who can refine 12 special class Dao sculpting divine pills in the first furnace in the Grand Essence realm. Brother Ning, you have a good chance of entering the 5th level of the spiritual medicine garden. If you really enter, then even I would benefit from it. You should understand why those powerhouses and sect masters accepted the city lord's invitation, right? Not only does it give Lijiesheng face, but it also allows for the exchange of rare divine grasses after the medicinal herb hunt in the illusion garden ends. If you can find high-grade Dao fruits, the harvest this time would definitely exceed your imagination. Ning Cheng understood what Qing Ho Tian meant. The 5th level of the spiritual medicine garden was the Dao Birth Dao Fruit Garden. He had refined 12 Dao sculpting divine pills before, all of which were special class medicinal pills. Even the Dao Birth Dao pills and Dao Transformation Dao pills contained some special class Dao pills. After explaining all this to Ning Cheng, Qing Ho Tian smiled and said, "The illusion garden's entry restrictions made everyone acquiesce to the city lord's mansion's protection. With your alchemy Dao level, you will definitely have a big harvest this time. If you can enter the 4th level of the Dao Sculpting Divine Dao Fruit Garden, you might be able to find the beautiful star gold hidden leaf." Ning Cheng felt overjoyed. As long as there weren't any special accidents, he had absolute confidence in entering the 4th level. However, he found it strange that there were only 6 levels in the illusion garden. It seemed that the Dao Transformation Divine Fruit Garden was the highest level. He didn't ask Qing Ho Tian about it. He was just a first-step Dao confirming Holy Emperor. It would be impossible for him to refine second-step Dao pills. It would be meaningless to ask. "Many thanks, Brother Ho Tian, for telling me this. I'll leave first. I'll see you in the city lord's mansion the day after tomorrow." Ning Cheng got up and said his goodbyes. He believed that Qing Ho Tian would definitely go to the city lord's mansion. "Okay, see you the day after tomorrow." Qing Ho Tian laughed and raised his hand. A pale golden staircase suddenly appeared in front of Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng walked out of the staircase and saw the female cultivators still waiting for him. "Senior, you came out?" The female cultivators saw Ning Cheng come out and quickly bowed to greet him. In fact, she had never brought anyone to participate in the Pill Sage assessment. Ning Cheng didn't even have a Dao Sculpting Pill Deity qualification card. Therefore, he wasn't qualified to take the Pill Sage assessment. The reason why no one told her about it was that she wasn't qualified to bring anyone to take the Pill Sage assessment. Those who took the Pill Sage assessment were at least Dao Transformation Pill Deities. Dao Transformation Pill Deities didn't need a newcomer like her to lead the way. That's because Pill Deities had to enter the VIP lounge to continue the assessment. A muddle-headed guide and a muddle-headed assessment, yet she passed. Ning Cheng took out a bottle of medicinal pills and handed it to the female cultivator leading the way. "Thank you for leading the way. This medicinal pill is for you. I'll go find my friend. You don't have to take care of this." The female cultivator didn't dare to say no. She quickly bowed and said, "Thank you, senior." Seeing Ning Cheng disappear at the end of the road, she still felt some contempt in her heart. Generally, pill refiners were the wealthiest group of people. Even if she just led the way, most pill refiners would throw a storage bag at her. Inside the storage bag, there were at least a few bottles of good medicinal pills and even a pile of spirit crystals. She had never seen a stingy person like Ning Cheng, who only gave a medicinal pill. Even if Ning Cheng didn't give her anything, she wouldn't dare to say half a word or show even half a face. Fortunately, this pill refiner didn't make her wait for long. A few hours wasn't a big loss to her. Nevertheless, she still opened the jade bottle and took a look. When the jade bottle was opened, the Dao charm of the medicinal pills spread out, and the female cultivator suddenly froze. She was an eternal cultivator, but that didn't mean she had no insight. She had been in the pill union for some time, so she naturally knew that this medicinal pill was a Dao pill. Each Dao pill was more precious than a Dao fruit of the same type, which could only be bought at auctions. But now, she actually had one in her hand. The female cultivator's heart pounded wildly. She quickly closed the lid of the jade bottle and even looked around. With this Dao pill, she could definitely exchange it for a batch of cultivation resources, which would greatly increase her chances of advancing to the Dao molding Holy Emperor stage. What a generous pill refiner! She had never seen a pill refiner give away a Dao pill so casually. This pill refiner wasn't stingy, but generous. Would a pill refiner who failed the assessment give away such a precious Dao pill casually? Thinking that Ning Cheng might succeed in the Dao Transformation Pill Saint assessment, the female cultivator who led the way trembled with excitement. Not all pill refiners were as indifferent as Ning Cheng. Some pill refiners came to take the assessment, and the female cultivator who led the way must have some results. What was a result? That was, the pill refiner she led had a higher chance of success. If she brought out a Dao Transformation Pill Saint, no one in the pill union would be able to match her reputation. With that, would she still worry about cultivation resources? In fact, Ning Cheng found the female cultivator leading the way pleasing to the eye. Plus, he had a lot of falling scar Dao pills on him, so he gave one to this female cultivator. For him, a falling scar Dao pill was nothing. As soon as Ning Cheng arrived at the place where Jian Trishan was waiting, Jian Trishan came out and looked at Ning Cheng with a smile. "Brother Ning, so fast? Did you pass the assessment?" Ning Cheng nodded. "I got lucky and finally passed. Let's go to the city master's mansion the day after tomorrow." 2 days passed by in a flash. On the day of the city master's banquet, Ning Cheng entrusted Yan Ji to Xen Xiu and went to the Heaven Essence Sacred City's city master's mansion with Jian Trishan. Seeing the defensive array outside the Heaven Essence Sacred City's city master's mansion, Ning Cheng understood that Lu Jiexing wasn't an ordinary city master. No matter how high Lu Jiexing's cultivation was, he couldn't open this defensive array. He was an array Dao master. Using the Grand Essence Realms classification system, he was a beginner's spirit array master. His Dao confirming attainments far exceeded that of ordinary beginner spirit array masters. Jian Sanshan, on seeing Ning Cheng frown, realized that Ning Cheng was using his spiritual consciousness to investigate. He quickly spoke up from the side. "Elder brother Ning, in this place, you must not use your spiritual consciousness to investigate, otherwise you might end up killing me." Ning Cheng smiled. "I know, you can rest assured." If it were before he took the Dao Transformation Pill Saint assessment, Ning Cheng would never dare to probe around like this. Jian Trishan's words were right. Once the city master's mansion became angry, the two of them would turn into ants. But it was different now. Not to mention that he was a Dao Transformation Pill Saint. Even if it was Cheng Hotian's face, Lu Jiexing didn't dare to refuse. Ning Cheng followed Jian Trishan and entered the guest hall under the guidance of the city master's mansion's cultivator. More than 100 people had already arrived. Not only that, but more people kept coming in. From this, one could tell that the city master had invited a lot of people this time. As soon as Jian Trishan came in, many cultivators stood up and greeted him. Apparently, his status wasn't bad. In this place, Jian Trishan didn't dare to neglect them and greeted them one by one. Not long after Ning Cheng and Jian Trishan sat down, more than 100 people walked into the guest hall. Seeing 9 revolving sacred Dao Pans Shirtianhe and a few women walk in, Ning Cheng's face suddenly sank and he gave a cold snort. Chapter 961. It's you? Shi Yishuang, who was standing next to Shirtianhe, immediately recognized Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng was just a little Dao molding divine emperor. Shi Yishuang seemed to have found him instantly. Shirtianhe frowned. "Yishuang, who is this?" She was naturally aware of Shi Yishuang's arrogance. She would definitely not care so much about a rogue cultivator for no reason. Shi Yishuang looked at Ning Cheng and sneered. "His name is Ning Cheng, but he has another identity. I believe that everyone knows about it, that is, Ji He." "Yishuang, you're saying that he's impersonating Ji He?" A middle-aged woman standing beside Shirtianhe asked in surprise. Not many people in P City knew about him, but when it came to Ji He, there was probably no one here who didn't know about him. The top 10 of the Grand Essence Great Meat snatched the first spring of the extraterritorial spirit spring. The owner of the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill had killed Guahauga, one of the Grand Essence's 12 sacred children. He had also suppressed another one of the Grand Essence's 12 sacred children, Ji Pingzhong, to the point that he only dared to occupy the 10th spring. After killing Manjuran, the patriarch of the barbarian dragon clan, one of the top 10 sects, Man Huishan, chased him into the land of broken laws. Moreover, Ning Cheng also heard that Ji He killed Hua Erqi, one of the 12 Grand Essence sacred children, in the grand essence mystic realm and obtained countless divine grasses. It was as if he had a grudge against the grand essence's 12 sacred children. He bullied either the grand essence's 12 sacred children or the dragon son. He had only appeared for a short period of time, but he had done a lot of things. Moreover, everything he did made people break out in cold sweat. Shi Shuang's voice was not soft. None of the people in the hall were weak, and almost all of them heard Shi Shuang's words. At this moment, all eyes fell on Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng had done so many things, yet still dared to swagger his way into the city master's mansion's banquet. It truly showed that his courage was not small. From the looks of it, he came with Sword Tri-Mountain. Although the 3 sword mountains had some fame, it was almost impossible to protect Ning City in this kind of place. How did you know that he was Jihe? Shi Tianhe stared at Ning Cheng. She felt that this person was somewhat familiar. Shi Shuang glanced at Ning Cheng before replying, Holy Emperor Barbarian Dragon chased after lifeless Poison Hand and Heartless Monk in the Grand Essence ruins to find him because he killed Manjurin. Later, when Ning Cheng disguised himself as Jihe to participate in the Grand Essence Great Meet, Barbarian Dragon Emperor immediately gave up waiting in the Grand Essence ruins and came to Heaven Essence Sacred City in time. Many people guessed that Jihe was Ning Cheng in disguise. However, most people did not know who he was. I happen to know this person. This person's courage is really not ordinary. He had directly offended Lifeless Poison Hand and Heartless Monk during the Grand Essence Ruins exchange meet. Now, Man Huishan has turned Lifeless Poison Hand into ashes, yet he is still alive and dared to come here. Shi Tianhe and the other middle-aged female cultivator next to her exchanged glances, before their eyes suddenly lit up as they stared at Ning Cheng. As long as they took down Ning City and handed it over to Man Huishan, they could definitely exchange it for a lot of things. Most importantly, this little cultivator still had the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pill on him. If Shi Tianhe thought this way, the others would naturally think the same way. If this weren't the city master's mansion, maybe someone would have already taken action against Ning Cheng. Did he offend you? Shi Tianhe asked with a cold tone. Shi Shuang naturally understood the meaning of these words. She wanted to find an excuse to take down Ning Cheng. She thought about it for a while but couldn't think of any way Ning Cheng had offended her. A cold snort sounded out, and a powerful aura surged over. The people staring at Ning Cheng felt this powerful aura and guessed that someone would be unlucky before the banquet even started. Because the person exuding this aura was Tong Mingzi, one of River Luo's sacred sex elders. He also had another identity, Guohouge's master. Guohouge died at the hands of Ning Cheng, who pretended to be Jihe. Yet, Ning Cheng still dared to appear in Heaven Essence Sacred City's city master's mansion. With Tong Mingzi's early-stage Dao essence cultivation, he could slap Ning Cheng into ashes with a wave of his hand. However, many people understood that Tong Mingzi didn't want revenge for his disciple, but for the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pill on Ning Cheng. Seeing so many people wanting to swallow Ning Cheng, Jian Sanshan shook his head speechlessly. Ning Cheng had offended too many people. Even if he wanted to help Ning Cheng, he didn't dare to say half a word. Just when Tong Mingzi was about to step over to Ning Cheng's side, a few more people walked in. As soon as these 3 people came in, it felt like they were in 3 different worlds. City Lord Lu, Holy Emperor Barbarian Dragon, Sect Master Fei. After the 3 people came in, everyone stood up and greeted them. Jian Sanshan's mouth was full of bitterness. He didn't expect Man Huishan to come here. Thinking of the grievances between Ning Cheng and Man Huishan, he subconsciously looked at Ning Cheng. However, he found Ning Cheng's expression calm, without any signs of panic. He even turned his head and looked at Jian Sanshan with a smile. Is that City Lord Lu Jiexing, the city master of Heaven Essence Sacred City? While asking, Ning Cheng wondered if Carol had shared his map with Man Huishan. Otherwise, how could this old man come out of the land of broken laws so quickly? As for fear, he really didn't feel it. Although he hated Shi Shuang for deliberately harming him, as long as he took out the Pill Saint qualification token, no one would dare to do anything to him. Jian Sanshan secretly praised Ning Cheng's thick nerves in his heart. He then introduced, the long-haired, black-bearded Holy Emperor on the far left is City Lord Lu. As for the other two, you should know one of them. He's Barbarian Dragon Clan's Dragon Emperor Man Huishan, and the other is Profound Moon Spirit Gate's Sect Master Fei Feng. Ning Cheng was only a Dao sculpting Holy Emperor, but he could feel that Man Huishan's cultivation had improved again. This fellow seemed to have gained more benefits in the land of broken laws than him. Back then, he was already at the full circle Dao essence realm. Now that his cultivation had improved, he would definitely be a primordial chaos Holy Emperor. Lu Jiexing and Fei Feng, who stood next to Man Huishan, gave off a majestic aura that didn't lose out to Man Huishan. Apparently, these two were also primordial chaos Holy Emperors. Cheng Hotian said that Lu Jiexing was still a Dao essence realm cultivator. Brother Jian, isn't the Profound Moon Spirit Gate's sect master surnamed Qi? Ning Cheng asked with a frown. Jian Sanshan couldn't help but admire Ning Cheng's open-mindedness. Under such circumstances, shouldn't he pay the most attention to Man Huishan? Why would he pay attention to Profound Essence Spirit Gate's sect master Fei Feng? Fortunately, he also knew a little about Ning Cheng's past. Ning Cheng and Qi Shixingsing were friends, so he would naturally pay attention to Qi Shixingsing's father. Qi Shixingsing's father was the previous sect master of Profound Moon Spirit Gate. I heard that Profound Moon Spirit Gate's sect master Qi Zhongwei encountered some problems during his seclusion. The original Grand Elder Fei Feng became the new sect master. Profound Moon Spirit Gate has been very low-key about this matter, but I don't know why. After listening to Jian Sanshan's answer, Ning Cheng suddenly felt a little strange. Why would a primordial chaos powerhouse encounter problems in seclusion? Moreover, after he separated from Qi Shixingsing, 73 Star hadn't come to find him. Was it also because of this matter? 3 primordial chaos Holy Emperors came in, and Tong Mingzi, who wanted to grab Ning Cheng, stopped himself. Arresting someone in the City Lord's mansion's guest hall without any politeness meant that they didn't give the City Lord any face. It was fine if he wanted to arrest someone, but he had to inform Lu Jiexing first to show respect. Man Huishan's gaze swept around the guest hall and soon fell on Ning Cheng. He snorted coldly, "You're like a ghost. I can see you everywhere, you ant." Although he couldn't wait to grab Ning Cheng and take him away, Man Huishan didn't want to see Ning Cheng right now. Because now that he saw Ning Cheng, even if Ning Cheng pointed at his nose and scolded him, he couldn't touch a single hair on Ning Cheng's head. Ning Cheng also ridiculed him with disdain. "Man Zi, this father also wants to say the same thing. Why didn't the land of broken laws kill trash like you? Sure enough, scourges live for thousands of years." "You?" Man Huishan's face turned livid with anger. He was the patriarch of the Barbarian Dragon Clan and a Dragon Emperor. Now, he was even a primordial chaos powerhouse. Ning Cheng was just a puny Dao sculpting Holy Emperor, yet he dared to scold him, a primordial chaos Holy Emperor. It would be strange if he didn't feel angry. Everyone in the guest hall felt shocked. Ning Cheng was just a puny Dao sculpting Holy Emperor, yet he dared to speak to Dragon Emperor Man Huishan like this. What the hell was this fellow's courage made of? What shocked everyone even more was that Man Huishan actually endured it and didn't do anything to Ning Cheng. With Man Huishan's personality, he would definitely attack Ning Cheng. At most, he would greet Lu Jiexing. But now that Man Huishan didn't do anything, it felt strange. Lu Jiexing stared at Ning Cheng and gave a cold snort. His powerful spiritual consciousness immediately suppressed Ning Cheng. A puny Dao sculpting cultivator dares to act so boldly. Someone, throw him out of the City Master Mansion? He thought that Man Huishan didn't do anything to Ning Cheng because he cared about his face. Ning Cheng was just a Dao sculpting Holy Emperor. How could he compare to Man Huishan, the patriarch of the Barbarian Dragon Clan? Lu Jiexing said this because he wanted Man Huishan to owe him a favor. City Master Lashur is awe-inspiring. Throwing people out at the drop of a hat? Does City Master Lu really think that the Fantasy Orchard is your Lu clan's private property? Or, does City Master Lu think that after advancing to primordial chaos, you don't put anyone in the world in your eyes? A sarcastic voice interrupted Lu Jiexing's words. Lu Jiexing's expression changed when he heard this. Then he saw 2 men, one tall and one short, walk in. He quickly stepped forward and cupped his fists. Lujiesheng greets Association Master Cheng and Protector Ju. Just now, this Dao sculpting cultivator dared to be rude to Grand Essence C's barbarian dragon Holy Emperor, which made me angry. No matter how much courage he had, he wouldn't dare to look down on the Pill Union's second president, Cheng Hotian. Don't look at how he had just advanced to primordial chaos Holy Emperor. But he was nothing in front of the Pill Union. Not to mention the Pill Union, even Protector Ju around Cheng Hotian could kill him. After all, he was a late-stage primordial chaos Holy Emperor. Why did I hear that barbarian was rude to my brother Ningcheng first, and my brother retorted? Is he a dragon emperor? Is he a guest? If my brother isn't a dragon emperor, why should I throw him out? Even if Cheng Hotian's cultivation was weaker than Lujiesheng's, Cheng Hotian's aura was much stronger than Lujiesheng's. Cheng Hotian's brother? Ningcheng had just advanced to the Dao sculpting realm. When did he have such a powerful elder brother? Cheng Hotian was a Dao transformation pill saint and the second president of the Pill Union. Even the sect masters of the top 10 sects would have to bow down to him. Yet, these two people who had nothing to do with each other had become brothers. The entire guest hall turned completely silent, without a single sound. Chapter 962. Although he didn't understand why Ningcheng was friends with Cheng Hotian, Lujiesheng reacted quickly and said, "So Brother Ning is a friend of Association Head Cheng. I was too reckless before." Ningcheng had to admire Cheng Hotian. This kind of person was the most dangerous. He weighed the pros and cons in the shortest time possible. The Pill Association didn't belong to the 10 great sects, but it didn't lose to them at all. Lujiesheng was just a city lord. Even if he reached primordial essence, he couldn't compare to the Pill Association. Lujiesheng seemed to be sailing with the wind and bowing his head to Cheng Hotian, but deep down in his bones, he simply did not take it seriously at all. Ningcheng was able to sense it. This kind of guy who could bend and stand tall as needed, and who didn't affect his Dao heart even if he surrendered on the surface, was the most terrifying. After Lujiesheng bowed to Cheng Hotian, he cupped his fists towards Ningcheng. "Brother Ning, I was wrong just now. Even if I want to kick you out, I have to find a proper reason." Ningcheng said coldly, "I don't have many brothers. You aren't qualified to be my brother." Everyone was in an uproar. A Dao molding divine emperor said that a primordial essence cultivator wasn't qualified to be his brother. This was simply too arrogant. Lujiesheng's face turned cold and his entire body became gloomy. He didn't care about bowing his head to Cheng Hotian, but Ningcheng, a mere Dao molding divine emperor, dared to mock him. This was simply courting death. Ha! Cheng Hotian walked to the Pill Association's seat and sat down. He glanced at Tong Mingzi and said coldly, "This sage will see who dares to touch my brother today." It's very lively. Another voice was heard and several divine emperors walked in. This interlude interrupted Lujiesheng's anger. What confused Ningcheng was that the leader was a Dao Nourishment Divine Emperor. This Dao Nourishment Divine Emperor looked very young and had a Dao rune around him. Ningcheng was a Dao Transformation Pill Sage, so he quickly understood that this was the aura of a Pill Dao rune. This person was a Pill Refinement expert. Jian Sanshan was shocked by Ningcheng's strength. Only when Cheng Hotian stood up did Jian Sanshan let out a sigh of relief. He didn't expect Ningcheng to be friends with the Pill Association's second president, Cheng Hotian. If that was the case, then the other sects who wanted to make a move on Ning City would have to be a lot more afraid. The hatred between Man Huishan and Ningcheng couldn't be resolved because Ningcheng killed Man Huishan's son, Manjuran. However, it was not worth it for the other sects to offend Cheng Hotian over a dead sage. "Brother Ning, this is the youngest Dao transformation pill saint in the Grand Essence realm, Jinghan. He's the most promising holy emperor to become a primordial Dao pill saint. He's also an elder of the Grand God Pill sect. The two pill gods behind him are also from the Grand God Pill sect." Jian Sanshan explained to Ningcheng in a low voice. Ningcheng nodded. Because of the origin, his alchemy Dao runes weren't very eye-catching after he advanced to a Dao transformation alchemy saint. The Dao runes of the alchemy Dao revolved around Jinghan's body. Jian Sanshan was right. He should be a Dao transformation alchemy saint. Yes, This person is indeed a powerhouse in the field of alchemy. Ning Qing nodded. The Grand God Pill sect isn't a big sect. But because the youngest Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint, Jing Han, is in the Grand God Pill sect, the Grand God Pill sect's status isn't any lower than the top 10 sections. Jian Sanshan sighed. He was a Tao Transformation Alchemy deity himself, so he naturally knew how difficult it was to advance to a Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint. Because of this, he also admired and worshipped Jing Han. Ning Qing showed a slight smile. Yes, he's a Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint. But if he's the youngest Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint, then it would be too much. I'm also a Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint, and I believe that I'm much younger than him. Jian Sanshan smiled but didn't answer Ning Cheng's words. He wouldn't believe Ning Cheng's words. However, he and Ning Cheng became friends not only because of Ning Cheng's Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill but also because of Ning Cheng's talent in alchemy. An alchemy master with poor talent in alchemy wouldn't be able to find a refining hub without a furnace in a short time. With Ning Cheng's talent in alchemy, even if he couldn't step into the Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint realm in the future, it wouldn't be difficult for him to get the title of Alchemy Saint. Every alchemy master was conceited, and he was equally conceited. It wasn't surprising that Ning Cheng set his goal to become a Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint. When Ning Cheng saw Jian Sanshan's expression, he knew that Jian Sanshan didn't believe him. Therefore, he took out a pale golden qualification card and said, "Brother Jian, I'm telling the truth." Jian Sanshan's indifferent gaze fell on the qualification card in Ning Cheng's hand and suddenly felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was a Tao Transformation Alchemy deity, so he naturally understood that this pale golden qualification card was a genuine Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint qualification card. Ning Cheng put away the Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint qualification card and said with a smile, "Brother Jian, now you believe that I didn't lie to you, right?" After a few breaths of time, Jian Sanshan finally took in a deep breath as he stared at Ning Cheng with a fanatical gaze. "I finally understand." He finally understood why Cheng Hotian wanted to call Ning Cheng a brother and even offend Lu Jiesheng. He also finally understood why Ning Cheng didn't fear Man Huishan. Not to mention that Ning Cheng was a Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint, it was worth Cheng Hotian's investment. Even if Ning Cheng and Cheng Hotian weren't familiar with each other, no one could bully a Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint certified by the Pill Association. As long as Ning Cheng took out the Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint qualification card, anyone who targeted Ning Cheng would fight to the death with the Pill Association. He was a Tao Transformation Alchemy deity. Although he was also certified by the Pill Association, his status was far inferior to a Tao Sculpting Alchemy Saint. Ning Cheng, on the other hand, had the Tao Transformation Alchemy Saint qualification card. "Brother Ning, it's really my luck to be friends with you." Jian Sanshan calmed down. Although he still felt excited, his expression calmed down. After calming down, Jian Sanshan remembered the medicinal pill Ning Cheng had given him 2 days ago. At that time, Ning Cheng had only said that he would give him one of the highest grade medicinal pills he refined. Now that he thought about it, how could a pill sage like Ning Cheng give an ordinary medicinal pill to a Tao Transformation Alchemy deity? Jian Sanshan immediately took out the jade bottle containing the medicinal pill. Previously, he thought that Ning Cheng wanted him to take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of this medicinal pill and then give him some pointers. He had planned to take out the medicinal pill and discuss it with Ning Cheng after the city master's banquet ended. But now he understood that it wasn't the case. Purple Heaven Pill? Jian Sanshan's spiritual consciousness scanned the medicinal pill and almost called out. Purple Heaven Pill was a Tao pill that allowed Tao Nourishment Holy Emperors to comprehend Tao transformation. For him, it was something he urgently needed. Ning Cheng obviously knew what he needed, which was why he gave it to him. "Brother Ning, thank you." Jian Sanshan put away the jade bottle in excitement. In the past, he had helped others with alchemy, and they would always thank him. But now, he felt the same gratitude towards Ning Cheng. Most of the reason he helped Ning Cheng was because he needed something from Ning Cheng. Moreover, his help was just ordinary help. Ning Cheng had already given him more than 10 million times in return. Jing Han's status was indeed high, and the warm greetings he received were second only to Cheng Hotian and Lu Jiesheng. City Master Lu Jiesheng ignored Ning Cheng and personally led Jing Han to the Grand God Pilsek's seats. After everyone sat down, Lu Jiesheng stood on the main seat and cupped his fists. Many thanks to all the sect masters, the strongest alchemists in the Grand Essence realm, for coming to my Heaven Essence Sacred City's City Master Mansion as guests. Top quality spirit fruits, top quality Dao fruit wine. With Lu Jiesheng's greeting, beautiful female cultivators walked into the guest hall with jade plates in their hands. Then, they brought spirit fruits and wine to each seat. When Ning Cheng heard the words Dao fruit wine, his heart moved. If he used Dao fruits to refine wine, wouldn't it be much more interesting than refining Dao pills? Even if he ate the medicinal pill, he wouldn't be able to taste the Dao fruit at all. Apart from using the Dao fruit laws within, it had no other use. But wine was different. Not only did it have the taste of Dao fruits, but it also contained the Dao fruit laws. This Lu Jiesheng truly was a big spender. With this Dao fruit wine, this trip wasn't in vain. Most likely, only Lu Jiesheng was rich enough to use Dao fruits to make wine. Many people use Dao fruits to make wine, but only City Master Lu can take it out to entertain guests. Jian Sanshan whispered in Ning Cheng's ear. Ning Cheng nodded. Using Dao fruits to make wine and taking it out to entertain so many people. Soon, the Dao fruit wine arrived in front of Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng scanned it with his spiritual consciousness and found only a very faint aura of laws, which made Ning Cheng feel a little disappointed. Looking at the glass of wine in front of him, Ning Cheng suddenly thought of a way to get rich. If he could use Dao fruits to refine Dao fruit wine, and at the same time, maintain the Dao fruit wine's laws and taste, it would definitely be 100 times more delicious than Dao pills. The more Ning Cheng thought about it, the more he felt that it was feasible. He even forgot that he was still at the City Master Mansion's banquet. He picked up the Dao fruit wine in front of him and took a big gulp. The wine was mellow, and a clean and rich spirit aura poured into his throat. It truly tasted good. However, the faint fragrance of spirit fruits and the faint aura of laws made Ning Cheng feel disappointed. This kind of wine could be refined using ordinary God's spirit fruits. Using Dao fruits to make this kind of wine, at best, it would only attract attention. Without experiencing the true Dao fruit law aura and Dao fruit fragrance, it could be said to be a waste of things. Humph, it's really vulgar and can't see the world. City Master Lu hasn't even finished speaking, yet he can't wait to drink the Dao fruit wine. What a disgrace. Shi Yishuang's voice rang out. She and Ning Cheng had a conflict in the Grand Essence Mystic Realm, and at that time, Ning Cheng had disguised himself as Jihe. Therefore, she seized every opportunity to hit Ning Cheng while he was down. Jian Sanshan, who sat on Ning Cheng's side, also raised his glass and took a sip before speaking up with an intoxicated voice. City Master Li's Dao fruit wine is just too fragrant. I can't help but take a sip first. Lu Jiesheng laughed, picked up the jade glass and said, I'm here to celebrate everyone's harvest in the fantasy garden. Chapter 963. Jian Sanshan politely greeted the sage emperors who toasted him while sending a sound transmission to Ning Cheng, telling Ning Cheng who the pill saints were. Thanks to Sword Tri-Mountain's introduction, Ning Cheng learned that there were at least 3 other Dao transformation pill saints here apart from him. Besides Cheng Hotian and Jing Han, there was also a red-faced middle-aged man. The red-faced middle-aged man was called Leshem. He was a Dao Actualization Divine Emperor and Dao Actualization Pill Divine. As for Dao Modeling Alchemy Saints and Dao Birth Alchemy Saints, there were at least 10 of them. Most of the Grand Essence Realm's Pill Saints had come here. From the looks of it, these Pill Saints attached great importance to the Alchemy Conference. Brother Ning, you can beat Lu Yixian to the point that he doesn't dare to talk nonsense. You even managed to occupy the first spring of the extraterritorial domain. I really admire you. Percy offers you a toast. A rough man with a full beard picked up a glass of wine and stood in front of Ning Cheng. As a Dao Transformation Pill Saint, this was the first time someone toasted him. Ning Cheng felt a little strange. This Percy seemed to have just advanced to the Dao sculpting realm like him. Toasting him so openly, wasn't this the same as slapping Man Huishan's face? Jian Sanshan knew that Ning Qing didn't understand many things, so he sent a voice transmission to Ning Qing. Brother Ning, this Percy is one of the Grand Essence's 12 sacred children. He came from a very mysterious sect, the Void Star sect. No wonder this fellow looked so happy after he beat up Lu Yixin. It turned out to be Percy, who was ranked behind Lu Yixin. Ning Qing smiled, picked up the wine cup and drank it in one gulp. He guessed that Percy didn't come looking for him just because he taught Lu Yixin a lesson. There must be something else. Fellow Taoists. Just as Percy was about to continue speaking, Jing Han suddenly picked up a glass of wine and stood up. In everyone's eyes, Jing Han was the youngest Tao transformation alchemy saint in the Grand Essence realm. No one would not give such a person face if he stood up. Even primordial chaos holy emperors, who did not stand up, raised their wine cups. When Jing Han advanced to become a primordial Tao alchemy saint in the future, who could guarantee that he wouldn't beg him? My great god pill sect once obtained an Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill. Not only could it expand one's spiritual sea, but it could also purify and strengthen one's spiritual sea. It can be said that this is the most powerful spiritual pill I've ever seen. When Jing Han spoke about the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill, a strange atmosphere filled the hall, and many gazes even fell on Ning Qing. Jing Han arrived a little later and didn't know that Ning Qing was Ji He, nor did he know that Ning Qing had the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill on him. If the pirated version wanted to sell well, then it naturally had to restrain the original. Jing Han's words stopped. He knew best whether the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill's pill formula had come out or not. The Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill launched by his Grand God Pill sect had too many side effects. Compared to the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill, the effect was 1,000 miles apart. If he could catch Ji He, his Grand God Pill sect would have taken him away a long time ago. He didn't expect that Ji He would actually come to this place. His gaze immediately swept out. This time, Ning Qing didn't wait for anyone to stand up and mention him. He signaled to Percy that he would say something later. Then, he took out a jade bottle and took the initiative to stand up. Fellow Taoists, you guessed correctly. The Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill did flow out from my hands. There are still 5 Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills in the jade bottle in my hand. These 5 Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills might be a masterpiece. Of course, I haven't seen the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill refined by pill sage Jing Han. As such, I can't say how his medicinal pill compares to my medicinal pill. But I believe that the pill sage here isn't a vegetarian. You can easily tell which one is better by comparing the 2 medicinal pills. While talking, Ning Qing raised the jade bottle in his hand. Now I want to sell these 5 Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills. Moreover, one of them is of high quality. Ning Qing felt sure that if Jing Han wanted to sell fake Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills, he would have to buy the real pill in his hand. Otherwise, the Grand God Pill sect wouldn't be able to eat it all. I want it. What's the price? As soon as Ning Qing's words came out, many cultivators stood up, and the atmosphere turned noisy. Jing Han stared at Ning Qing and frowned. After a while, he suddenly spoke up. This Tao friend raised the medicinal pill in his hand and said it was the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill. Apart from the star-stepping tower master and me, no one here has seen the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill. I don't know if he's lying or not. So, why don't you take out the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill and let me check it? If Ning Qing wasn't a Tao transformation pill sage, Jing Han's words wouldn't have been out of place. Not only was it not out of place, but it also sounded righteous. Even if someone knew what he was thinking, no one dared to say it out loud. The people in the hall all showed expressions of watching the show. They already knew what kind of person Ning Qing was. He even dared to scold Man Huishan and didn't put City Master Li Jiexing in his eyes. Moreover, his friend, Xing Hotian, was a Tao transformation pill sage and the second president of the Pill Union. No matter how powerful Jing Han was, Ning Qing wouldn't care about him. Things happened beyond everyone's expectations. After Ning Qing heard Jing Han's words, he quickly cupped his fists and said to Jing Han, "It's reasonable for pill sage Jing to check it. But these medicinal pills of mine are too precious. I was planning to use these medicinal pills to exchange for cultivation resources. In case, Jing Han's expression turned cold. Tell me, what do you want me to leave behind for you to feel at ease? Ning Cheng quickly waved his hand. How could I dare to let Pill Sage Jing leave behind things for me? Wouldn't I be too arrogant? Jing Han's expression eased a little. But before he could continue, Ning Cheng's voice came again. Let's make an equivalent exchange. I heard that the Grand Divine Pill sect has a lot of 5 elements heavenly fruits. Let's exchange these 5 medicinal pills for 55 elements heavenly fruits. A burst of gasps emerged. This fellow really dared to open his mouth. Exchanging 5 medicinal pills for 55 elements heavenly fruits, it was simply heaven-defying. A thin layer of ice formed on Jing Han's face. Before he could speak, Ning Cheng suddenly poured out a medicinal pill from the jade bottle. Everyone look, it's the real Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill. It's definitely not fake. As soon as this medicinal pill came out, Jing Han's eyes tightened. The medicinal pill Ning Cheng took out was indeed the real Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill. Although it was only middle grade, it was definitely real. I only have 2 5 elements heavenly fruits. If you want to exchange, then let's exchange. If you don't want to, then forget it. Jing Han clenched his fists. A Tao-molding divine emperor dared to speak like this in front of a Tao transformation pill sage like him. Ning Cheng sighed as he placed the jade bottle in his hands in front of Lu Jiexing. Well, 2 it is 2. Who told you to be a Tao transformation pill sage? I'm already trying to please you. So, I decided to exchange with you. Put the things in front of the city lord, and he will testify. Jing Han didn't expect Ning Cheng to be so easy to talk to. The price dropped from 50 to 2 in an instant. Seeing Ning Cheng put the medicinal pill in front of Lu Jiexing, Jing Han took in a deep breath, took out 2 jade boxes, and put them in front of Lu Jiexing. At the same time, he took away Ning Cheng's jade bottle. Ning Cheng raised his hand and picked up the 2 jade boxes. He felt ecstatic in his heart. Using 4 semi-low-grade and 1 middle-grade Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills to exchange for 2 5 elements heavenly fruits, it truly was a stroke of good luck. He had refined these medicinal pills while studying the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills pill recipe. They were almost equivalent to useless pills. He didn't expect to use them now. If Jing Han hadn't used his Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill to swindle people, Ning Cheng would have used the real pill recipe to exchange. Not only did this fellow use his medicinal pills to swindle people, but he also took the opportunity to make money and ruin his and Pill Sage Min Kong's reputation. If Ning Cheng didn't cheat him, he would feel sorry for himself. Jing Han opened the jade bottle, and when his spiritual consciousness saw only 1 middle-grade Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill and the rest were almost useless pills, his face suddenly turned red like a pig's liver. Good, very good. Jing Han put away the jade bottle and glanced at Ning Cheng with a cold gaze. None of the people present were fools. When they saw Jing Han's expression, they realized that Ning Cheng had offended another Tao transformation pill sage. This fellow's courage was bigger than the sky. Holy Emperor Extreme Void, who had received benefits from Ning Cheng, stood up and said, City Lord Lu, everyone came here for the illusion fruit garden. Since we've already eaten the spirit fruits and drunk the Tao fruit wine, why don't we all watch our Grand Essence Realm's genius alchemists compete for the Tao fruits? Wouldn't it be better to discuss the Tao while watching my Grand Essence Realm's genius alchemists compete for the Tao fruits? Chapter 964. Lu Jiexing was a wily old fox and naturally knew what was going on. As soon as Holy Emperor Extreme Void finished speaking, he stood up and spoke in a clear voice. Holy Emperor Extreme Void is right. Tasting good wine while admiring my Grand Essence Realm's alchemy Tao Grandmaster easily harvesting heavenly treasures is indeed a pleasant thing. After speaking, Lu Jiexing raised his hand, and 2 blue flags fell in the middle of the hall, separated by a few feet. As the 2 blue flags fell, a 3-dimensional crystal screen suddenly appeared in the middle of the hall. 12 doors were displayed on the crystal screen. The 12 gates looked like a fairyland on the crystal screen, like a dream or fantasy. After a while, a circular medicine garden gate appeared under the crystal screen. Spatial ripples fluctuated within this circular gate. Ning Cheng had heard Ching Hotian's introduction and knew that these 12 gates should be the first floor of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. Calling this entrance the Fantasy Fruit Garden was indeed worthy of its name. Ning Cheng had never seen the Fantasy Fruit Garden open before, but he knew that the circular gate under the three-dimensional crystal screen was the entrance to the first floor of the assessment. It was also a teleportation array. This is the first floor of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. Only alchemy deities who can refine 12 special-grade Dao sculpting divine pills are eligible to enter. I can't refine 12 special-grade Dao sculpting divine pills yet, but I still want to give it a try. Jian Sanshan whispered to Ning Cheng. Alchemy Dao powerhouses who want to enter the Fantasy Fruit Garden. After Lu Jiesheng finished speaking, he cupped his fists towards the surroundings. I'll go first. A slender Dao nourishment holy emperor walked out. He first cupped his fists towards the surroundings before walking to Lu Jiesheng and handing out a storage ring. Big Dipper 7 Peaks Liang Qiuzhe greets City Lord Lu. I'll add 10% more this time. Lu Jiesheng put away the ring, took out a small storage bag, and handed it to Liang Qiuzhe with a smile. Many thanks. Congratulations to Pill God Liang for advancing to the next level. Ning Cheng asked with some confusion, Brother Jian, what does this Liang Qiuzhe mean? Only then did Jian Sanshan wake up. Ning Cheng was a Dao transformation pill saint, which meant that he wanted to enter the Fantasy Fruit Garden. He had previously thought that Ning Cheng would not go in, so he did not mention anything about the Fantasy Fruit Garden. Now that Ning Cheng asked about it, he quickly replied, because the Fantasy Orchard is guarded by City Master Lu, so every pill master who enters the Fantasy Orchard gets a 20-80 split. That is to say, the pill masters get 20%, while the City Master's mansion gets 80% as a reward for guarding the Fantasy Orchard. Ning Cheng suddenly frowned. This Fantasy Orchard's entrance transmission array is controlled by the City Master, yet this kind of guard also requires a reward? Jian Sanshan had no choice but to explain. Although guarding the Illusion Fruit Garden isn't a crime, it's still a lucrative job. It might not always be the Lu clan. As for how the Grand Essence domain will be allocated, I don't know. If they didn't hand over any God crystals, once they entered the Fantasy Fruit Garden, they would get a 280 split. When Liang Qiuzhe said he would add another 10%, he meant that once they entered the Fantasy Garden, he would get 30%. If he wanted 30%, he would have to give away 5 million divine crystals. There should be 5 million divine gems in the ring he took out just now. If you want to distribute 40%, then you have to give out 10 million yuan. 50% would be 20 million yuan, and so on and so forth. Ning Cheng sucked in a breath of cold air. This was no different from robbing spirit crystals. At this time, more and more alchemy masters walked through the door under the crystal screen in the middle of the hall. Ning Cheng found that most of the alchemy masters didn't pay any spirit crystals. Apparently, they intended to split it 280. However, those pill sages all paid a lot of spirit crystals and stated their share. In fact, City Master Lu is quite generous. After all, only a few alchemy masters enter the medicine garden. After the banquet, City Master Lu would give some of the alchemy masters a lot of gifts. Jian Sanshan continued. Then how does City Master Lu know how many divine grasses or Dao fruits the alchemy masters found? Jian Sanshan showed a smile. The Fantasy Garden opens once every 100 years, and the number of divine grasses obtained by each alchemy master has long since been fixed. Besides, do you think City Master Lu would give everyone a spiritual storage bag? After entering the Fantasy Garden, you can't use any space-type storage devices, not even the true spirit world. You can only put the divine grasses or Dao fruits you obtained into the spiritual storage bag. Therefore, it's clear at a glance how many divine grasses each person obtained. There is no danger in the Fantasy Garden, and alchemy masters only need to collect the divine grasses after entering. Under normal circumstances, alchemy masters would put some of the things they need in the spiritual storage bag, such as medicinal pills, pill furnaces, and so on. Ning Cheng secretly rejoiced in his heart. Fortunately, he had asked Jian Sanshan about it. He had previously wondered why Lu Jiesheng gave everyone a spiritual storage bag. This kind of spiritual storage bag could allow one's spiritual consciousness to sweep into it. It turned out that it was used to store things. Since he couldn't use any space-type storage devices in the fantasy garden, he didn't know if his mysterious yellow bead could be used in the fantasy garden. Ningqing quickly put this idea aside. Since he couldn't use any space-type storage devices in the fantasy garden, it must have been set up by a powerhouse. Who knew if there were any monitoring array formations or small back doors in this place? He decided to be cautious and not use the mysterious yellow bead in this place. Instead, he would use the spiritual storage bag. I want 80%. Jing Han's voice sounded out at this time. Ningqing saw Lu Jiexing pick up Jing Han's storage ring and look at it for a while before nodding and saying, "Okay, I wish Pill Sage Jing good luck. 80%? How many spirit crystals would that be?" Ningqing really wanted to know how many spirit crystals were in Jing Han's storage ring. Jian Sanshan whispered in Ningqing's ear, "Under normal circumstances, 80% can't be calculated in spirit crystals. There must be other treasures in the valuation. A Dao transformation pill sage like Jing Han can only ask for 80% at most." City Master Lu would not agree to anything more. At this time, more than 70 people had entered the fantasy garden. Ningqing stood up and said to Jian Sanshan, "I'll go in first. You can follow me." Seeing Ningqing stand up and walk towards Lu Jiexing, all the people's eyes focused on Ningqing. No matter how much courage Ningqing had, no matter how strong Ningqing's backing was. Just the fact that Ningqing had the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill on him was enough to attract a lot of attention. Lu Jiexing seemed to have completely forgotten what Ningqing had said before. Without waiting for Ningqing to speak, he took the initiative to speak up with a smile. "Pill Master Ning, it's your first time coming to my City Master's mansion to participate in the fantasy garden. I, as the City Master, have really neglected my duty. I didn't even know Pill Master Ning's level." Ningqing took out a light blue identity card and said, "City Master Lu is too serious. I passed the assessment by luck. I hope City Master Lu can check it." Lu Jiexing's eyes flashed with a trace of contempt. A Dao sculpting pill deity's qualification card, was it worthy for him to check? There were a lot of Dao sculpting pill deities here. He directly took out a spirit storage bag and handed it to Ningqing before saying, "Congratulations to Pill God Ning for obtaining more Dao fruits." The people in the hall naturally knew that Lu Jiexing was ridiculing Ningqing. Congratulating a Dao sculpting pill deity for obtaining more Dao fruits in the fantasy garden was a blatant slap in the face. To obtain Dao fruits, one had to be at least at the level of a pill sage. A Dao sculpting pill deity was too far away. Ningqing didn't care about it and said with a smile, "Many thanks, City Master Lu. Dao fruits are of great use to me. If I obtained a lot of Dao fruits and took them out, I would feel some pain in my heart. Therefore, I also want to take out something to exchange for spirit crystals and give out less Dao fruits." When Ningqing said this, someone in the hall finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Lu Jiexing still had a faint smile on his face. "Oh, what Pill God Ning said makes sense. I wonder how much Pill God Ning wants?" Ningqing hesitated for a while before taking out a jade bottle and saying, "I thought I didn't have any Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pills on me. I didn't expect to find another bottle of Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pills. I'm really lucky. There are a total of 6 in here, and all of them are top-quality consciousness transmutation pills." The smile on Lu Jiexing's face instantly disappeared, and he raised his hand and grabbed the jade bottle that Ningqing had taken out. Although he had advanced to Dao fusion on the surface, his sea of consciousness was not stable. One could say that his strength was still a level lower than that of a true Dao fusion powerhouse. Moreover, a spirit pill like the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill was something he urgently needed. When Ningqing took out the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill to sell to Jing Han, he couldn't wait to snatch it. Now that Ningqing took out 6 more Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pills, and all of them were top-quality medicinal pills, even if he looked calm on the surface, he couldn't remain calm in his heart. Ningqing let Lu Jiexing grab his jade bottle and didn't care about it. Jing Han, who hadn't yet entered the first level of the fantasy fruit garden, saw Ningqing take out another bottle of Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pills, and his hands trembled with anger. Ning Cheng had said that he had sold him the last few, but now he found another bottle. If he could, he would have immediately killed Ning Cheng. Lu Jiexing opened the jade bottle and swept his spiritual consciousness inside. A refreshing feeling that made his sea of consciousness feel as if it had been watered with an innate aura made Lu Jiexing feel ecstatic. This was what he needed. In any case, he had to keep these 6 Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills. You can take 60% of the divine grasses in the fantasy fruit garden. After taking in a deep breath, Lu Jiexing capped the jade bottle and spoke in a deep voice. Ning Cheng stretched out his hand. Forget it. I don't even know if I can enter the first level. Even if I took out a bottle of Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills, I would only get 60%. I might as well keep this bottle of Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills and exchange them for Dao fruits with other pill saints. By the way, I just exchanged 2 Dao fruits with the generous pill Saint Jinghan. City Master Lu, are you bullying me because I haven't seen the world yet? How much do you want? Even if he knew that if he didn't put the jade bottle in Ning Cheng's hands, everyone would see it, Lu Jiexing still didn't hand over the jade bottle. Ning Cheng sighed and said, I suddenly regret it. With my level of alchemy, I can only enter the first level and obtain some ordinary divine grasses. I heard that the Grand God Pill sect spent tens of millions of high-grade spirit crystals to purchase an Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill, and it was still a top-grade medicinal pill. I have a top-grade one here, and there are still 6 of them. Heavens, how many high-grade spirit crystals are there? How could I be so confused? Even if I get all the divine grasses and Dao fruits, I would still suffer a loss. Chapter 965. Everyone in the main hall sneered. You seem to have suffered a loss too? You idiot, you're definitely going to suffer. No wonder he was so bold and dared to offend so many experts. This guy turned out to be an idiot. Okay, I'll give you everything. I don't want any of the divine grasses you obtained in the fantasy fruit garden. Lu Jiexing didn't wait for Ning Cheng to say anything and directly spoke up. Behind Ning Cheng stood Cheng Ho Tian, who was not someone he could bully. Ning Cheng frowned and looked a little regretful. But after a while, he gave out a sigh and said, These 6 Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills belong to me and my friend Jian Sanshan. His share. Lu Jiexing was very familiar with the 3 Swords Mountain. It was not the first time he had gone to the fantasy garden to attend the city lord's banquet. However, he had never entered the illusion orchard even once. It could be seen that the reason why he was so famous was because of the Fusing Heaven pill. Fuse Heaven pill was a pill for sensing Dao essence. Jian 3 Mountain was just a Dao nourishment divine emperor, and he dared to concoct a pill for sensing Dao essence. It would be strange if there were no side effects or hidden dangers of this kind of pill. Furthermore, he had never heard of anyone advancing to the primordial Dao realm because of the Fuse Heaven pill. Okay, I agree. Lu Jiexing answered without the slightest hesitation. For Ning Cheng and Sword Trishan, it did not make any difference whether they split 20% or 100%, because these 2 people could not even enter the first level of the fantasy orchard. Many thanks, City Master Lu. Ning Cheng cupped his fists and thanked him, before beckoning to Sword 3 Mountain behind him. The reason why he had taken out the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill was because he knew that Lu Jiexing would not be able to refuse. His spiritual sea was extremely powerful. He had already guessed that Lu Jiexing was unstable when he had just advanced to primordial chaos. How could Lu Jiexing not agree in a hurry in the face of not losing anything and getting 6 Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills for free? This idiot. Seeing Lu Jiexing take away the 6 Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills, which she desperately needed, the middle-aged female cultivator from the 9 Revolutions Sacred Dao Pond cursed. Shuri Shuang spoke up from the side. Grand Marshal Uncle, Ning Cheng is a very cunning person. In the few instances in which I have seen him, he has never lost. Even Man Huishan couldn't do anything to him, so how could he do such an idiotic thing? Shi Tian, he spoke up in a deep voice. Yishuang is right, this person called Ning Cheng is very strange. The middle-aged female cultivator also reacted and stared at Ning Cheng before nodding. After Lu Jiexing put away the 6 Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills, he also felt that something was wrong. Ning Cheng should have the confidence to enter the first floor, otherwise he would not have done such a thing. Even if Ning Cheng had the confidence to enter the first floor, so what? He had to get those 6 special-class Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills no matter what. Not only did Lu Jiexing react, but most of the cultivators in the hall also realized that there was a problem. Ning Cheng was a low-level cultivator who managed to escape from Man Huishan's clutches. How could he not know how to calculate such a debt? The only possibility was that Ning Cheng really had the confidence to enter the first layer of the fantasy orchard, or even the second layer of the medicine garden. Man Huishan sneered and didn't speak. He had chased after Ning Cheng for a few years and had a better understanding of Ning Cheng. Why would such a person take out 6 special-grade Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills for no reason? If it were him, even if he longed for the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills, he would never agree. Man Huishan immediately thought of disagreeing and subconsciously glanced at Lu Jiexing with a sigh in his heart. Would he really not agree? If there were 6 Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills in front of him, even if he knew that Ning Cheng would take advantage of it, he would most likely agree to Ning Cheng's request. Ning Cheng took out the first furnace of chaos and put it into the spiritual storage bag. When everyone saw Ning Cheng's first furnace of chaos, they couldn't help but laugh. This first furnace of chaos wasn't too bad, but it definitely wasn't a good furnace. This kind of furnace dared to engrave the words first furnace of chaos. Wasn't it afraid of being struck by lightning? Ning Cheng didn't care about what others thought. He grabbed the spiritual storage bag and followed the crowd into the circular entrance. After entering the entrance, Ning Cheng felt the scenery in front of him change, and another hall appeared in front of him. Right in front of this hall was not a wall, but a cliff. There were 12 doors lined up on the cliff. Just as Cheng Hotian had said, each door had 12 pill slots. Above the 12 doors was a void. More than 80 alchemists came in, and these alchemists all found their own positions. They even took out their pill furnaces and placed them in front of them, waiting for the illusion orchard to open. When Ning Cheng saw that Cheng Hotian didn't come in, he could guess some of the reasons. After all, Cheng Hotian had been famous for a long time and was also the second president of the Pill Association. If he came in and his level wasn't even as good as the juniors, not only would his reputation take a big hit, but the reputation of the Pill Association would also take a hit. "Brother Jian, you can stay next to me," Ning Cheng whispered to Jian Sanshan, who was behind him. Jian Sanshan didn't plan to stay far away from Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng was a Dao transformation pill sage, and it would be better for him to stay by Ning Cheng's side. After another half an incense stick worth of time, the door finally disappeared. When the door disappeared, many alchemists immediately took out their pill fires and pill furnaces. Everyone knew that the alchemists were about to snatch the medicine garden's entrance. There were only 12 doors to the medicine garden, and there were more than 80 pill gods and pill sages here. Whoever refined a furnace of special-grade Dao sculpting spirit pills first would be the first to enter the first level of the illusion orchard. He heard that the first to enter would obtain the most precious divine grasses. "Brother Ning, you're a Dao transformation pill sage. Try to refine the most difficult Dao sculpting spirit pills you can refine." Jian Sanshan sent a voice transmission to Ning Cheng after Ning Cheng took out the primal chaos first furnace. "Why?" Ning Cheng looked at Jian Sanshan in confusion. Didn't he say that as long as he refined 12 special-grade Dao sculpting spirit pills, he could open the door? Jian Sanshan also took out a pill furnace and sent a voice transmission to Ning Cheng. Although each level only needs a specific grade of medicinal pill to open the door, the number of divine grasses inside the door is different. However, there was a difference in the rarity and quantity of the divine herbs inside the gate. The higher the grade of the door-opening divine pill, the harder it would be to refine. After opening the door, the divine grasses inside would become more precious and numerous. Ning Cheng understood that these doors were equivalent to teleportation arrays. These teleportation arrays only needed medicinal pills to provide pill chi to open them. Different medicinal pills would open up different teleportation directions. According to Jian Sanshan, The more difficult the medicinal pill was to refine, the more precious the teleportation array to the medicinal garden could be opened. Ning Cheng originally wanted to refine a furnace of ordinary Dao sculpting spirit pills. But after listening to Jian Sanshan's words, he immediately found a furnace of divine grasses for the primal tranquil pill. The primal tranquil pill was just a Dao sculpting spirit pill. The main divine grasses were the purple lightning stamen and the one essence zoysia, supplemented by dozens of ordinary divine grasses. The difficulty of refining it was comparable to refining a mid-level Dao nurturing spirit pill. The primal tranquil pill was a top-grade Dao sculpting spirit pill. It could help Dao sculpting holy emperors gain an epiphany of Dao intent. Whether it was seclusion or spirit technique enlightenment, this pill was better than ordinary spirit pills. Seeing Ning Cheng refine the primal tranquil pill, Jian Sanshan could only sigh. Ning Cheng was probably the only one who could refine the primal tranquil pill in front of the door of the first level. Even Jing Han wouldn't dare to refine such a pill. Although he wanted to see how Ning Cheng refined the primal tranquil pill, Jian Sanshan knew that now wasn't the time. He had to start refining pills himself. What he wanted to refine was just a furnace of ordinary spirit essence restoration pills, the Heaven Balance pill. At this moment, every alchemy master was immersed in refining pills and completely ignored the people around them. Jian Sanshan, like the surrounding alchemy masters, also forgot about everything else. His entire mind and body were focused on the furnace of Heaven Balance pills in front of him. Since he and Ning Cheng had become friends, he didn't want to look like trash in front of Ning Cheng. If Ning Cheng entered the 4th level of the fantasy orchard, he wouldn't even be able to enter the 1st level. It would be too embarrassing. The more he wanted to succeed, the more mistakes he made. Seeing that the pill technique couldn't take shape and the pill chi started to overflow, Jian Sanshan could only sigh. It would be difficult for him to refine 12 top-quality Heaven Balance pills with this furnace of pills. At this moment, Ning Cheng's voice suddenly rang in his ears. The pill technique has a crack, pill chi is overflowing, spiritual sense is locking the pill liquid. The pill technique is as follows. Spiritual nourishing spirit chi, true extreme fire element. Jian Sanshan was overjoyed. Although he didn't know why Ning Cheng could still pay attention to his pill furnace while refining pills, he firmly believed in Ning Cheng's voice transmission. In just a few breaths' time, the pill chi that was leaking out gathered back and the pill grade increased again. As long as he continued, this batch of top-quality Heaven Balance pills would definitely be able to escape. Jian Sanshan suppressed his excitement and carefully refined the pills. In the guest hall of the City Lord Estate, everyone stared at the three-dimensional screen in the middle of the hall. Although they couldn't see the faces of each alchemist, they could clearly see more than 80 alchemists refining pills in front of the 12 doors. It seems that the competition for the first level of the 12 doors isn't small. Divine Emperor Extreme Void saw the overflowing pill chi on the screen and smiled. I think the first one to open the door should be Great God Pill Sex Pill Saint Jing Han. He's a Dao actualization pill saint, so his pill Dao talent should be the best here, a Dao actualization Divine Emperor praised. Not necessarily. Senior Lesham is also a Dao actualization pill saint. His understanding of pill Dao shouldn't be weaker than pill Saint Jing Han's. The people in the guest hall were still in the midst of their discussions when Ning Cheng stood up. Who is this person? Why did he stand up so early? How long has it been? Less than a third of an incense stick of time, and he already failed. This is too trashy. By the way, this guy must be a pity for an empty city. The Dao Nourishment Divine Emperor who saw Ning Cheng stand up stopped halfway. On the crystal screen, one could only see the figure of the alchemist, but not the appearance. He guessed that it was Ning Cheng, but then he remembered that Ning Cheng's empty city consciousness transmutation pill was for City Lord Lu. It wasn't hard to guess that it was Ning Cheng. After all, apart from Ning Cheng, who was a Dao molding pill god, the rest were at least Dao nourishment pill gods. Chapter 966. That's not right. If he failed, he should have been sent out, right? Why didn't he come out? Without needing the Holy Emperor to continue speaking, everyone in the guest hall saw 12 cyan lights shoot out of Ning Cheng's pill furnace. The 12 cyan lights didn't hit any of the 12 doors. Instead, they shot into the void above the 12 doors. After the 12 cyan lights shot out, a new door suddenly appeared above the 12 doors. This new door was more than twice the size of the 12 doors below. The 13th door of the fantasy orchard opened? Cheng Hotian looked excited and suddenly stood up. Lu Jiexing, who always had a smile on his face, also stood up sluggishly and murmured, "Is it true that the fantasy orchard has a 13th door?" Not only Cheng Hotian and Lu Jiexing, but almost everyone in the hall didn't have the mood to continue tasting the Dao wine. They all stood up and stared at the 13th door on the crystal screen. Excitement and disbelief filled the entire hall. After a while, Holy Emperor Extreme Void sighed and said, "Legend has it that the fantasy orchard has a 13th door, which contains countless spirit medicines that are already extinct in the Grand Essence realm. It's just that no one has ever opened it since ancient times. I didn't expect someone to open it today. It's definitely Pill Sage Jinghan. Only he has this ability. Only he can refine the most difficult Dao sculpting spirit pill in such a short time." Someone immediately spoke up with enthusiasm. Many people thought that this view was correct. Indeed, only Pill Sage Jinghan had this ability. Lu Jiexing clenched his fists and suddenly felt some regret in his heart. What Jinghan gave him was indeed precious, but no matter how precious it couldn't compare to the divine grasses in the 13th door of the fantasy orchard, right? What's more, Jinghan was a Dao transformation pill sage. His path would never stop at the first level. Wouldn't the divine grasses grow more and more precious? After a while, he comforted himself. Fortunately, 20% of the divine grasses and Dao fruits Jinghan obtained belonged to him, which made him feel a little more balanced. A dark red-faced man from the Immortal Corpse sect sneered. "Grand God Pill Sect's Pill Sage Jinghan? Ha, stop dreaming." Perhaps no one knew that a Dao transformation alchemy saint from the Immortal Corpse sect, Do Jiangshi, was also participating in the Illusion Garden. Although Do Jiangshi only had a Dao modeling alchemy saint qualification card for the Elixir Association, his alchemy strength was definitely that of a Dao transformation alchemy saint. However, he had not gone to the Elixir Association for certification. Because of Do Jiangshi, the Immortal Corpse sect would become a new and powerful sect in the Grand Essence realm. Do Jiangshi was innately suitable for any cultivation method of the Immortal Corpse sect, including the Immortal Corpse sect's alchemy method. This time, the Immortal Corpse sect had brought Do Jiangshi to participate in the Illusion Garden in order to collect a large amount of resources and refine more divine pills or even saint pills for the Immortal Corpse sect. He didn't expect Do Jiangshi to be so powerful and open the rumored 13th door of the fantasy orchard. "Fellow Chun, your opinion seems to be a bit different. Could it be that the pill refiner who opened the 13th gate is from your Immortal Corpse sect?" A middle-aged man sitting next to the red-faced man chuckled and deliberately asked. He was Saint Emperor Gai He of the Purple Mist Immortal Valley. The Purple Mist Immortal Valley and the Immortal Corpse sect had fought over the Divine Crystal Mine and never got along well. The red-faced man from the Immortal Corpse sect spoke up in a calm voice. "Who knows? Maybe it's from my Immortal Corpse sect? But in any case, it won't be your Purple Mist Immortal Valley's turn." Gai He's face sank and he suddenly became speechless. His Purple Mist Immortal Valley didn't have any alchemy experts, which was why they came here to buy Dao fruits. A furnace of Dao sculpting spirit pills, even if it was difficult to refine, wouldn't have any problems for Ning Cheng. If it weren't for helping Jian Sanshan, he could have finished refining it in a quarter of an incense stick worth of time. After helping Jian Sanshan, Ning Cheng also completed the refining of the primordial tranquil pill. He stood up and was about to put away the pills when he saw the 12 medicinal pills in the pill furnace shoot out. Then Ning Cheng's eyes changed, and he clearly saw a new gate suddenly appear in the void above the 12 doors. A pale blue passage appeared in front of him, leading to this new gate. The 13th gate? Ning Cheng looked around in doubt. The rest of the alchemists were focused on refining pills, and no one noticed him. Even Jian Sanshan, who was next to him, was concentrating on his pill techniques. Ning Cheng quickly understood that he should be isolated by some kind of restriction. Even if he opened the gate, it wouldn't affect the rest of the alchemists. Maybe the rest of the alchemists wouldn't be able to see him at all. Ning Cheng took in a deep breath. No matter what, he had opened the gate after refining a furnace of special-grade Dao sculpting spirit pills. If there was nothing wrong with the rules, he should be able to go in. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng didn't hesitate and directly stepped onto the blue passage and entered the 13th gate. After Ning Cheng entered the gate that appeared in the void disappeared again. Ning Cheng disappeared, and no one paid attention to him. An incense stick worth of time after Ning Cheng entered the 13th gate, a man with a zombie-like face suddenly stood up, and 12 black lights shot out of his pill furnace and landed on the first gate on the left. The first gate on the left suddenly opened, and a passage extended from his feet to the gate. The zombie-faced man glanced at the alchemists around him with disdain, raised his head, and quickly walked up. A moment later, he entered the gate. After he entered the gate disappeared without a trace. The moment the zombie-faced man disappeared, Jing Han raised his hand and stood up. The 12 medicinal pills in his pill furnace also shot out. He glanced at the many alchemists still working hard on refining pills and raised his foot to step on the passage in front of him. The moment his foot landed, his expression changed. He saw that the cliff wall, which originally had 12 gates, now had only 11 gates. In other words, someone had entered the fantasy fruit garden before him. Jing Han's expression turned ugly. There were only 2 Dao transformation pill saints here, and he had just seen Resham performing alchemy. In other words, someone who wasn't a Dao transformation pill saint had entered the first level of the fantasy fruit garden before him. This was a slap in the face. He was the youngest pill saint in the Grand Essence realm and had the most promising future. Yet, someone had beaten him to it. Not to mention that the divine grasses he obtained would be far less than the first person to enter the gate. Even his reputation would fall because of this incident. He couldn't let this person enter the second level of the fantasy fruit garden before him. Thinking of this, Jing Han didn't dare to stay any longer. His figure flashed and disappeared into the gate. After Ning Cheng entered the medicine garden, he immediately felt shocked. Before entering this place, the most valuable divine herb garden he had seen was the one pill sage Min Kong had left in the Grand Essence mystic realm. But after coming here, he realized that pill sage Min Kong's medicine garden was nothing more than a child's play. The spiritual herbs in this divine herb garden not only matured, but they were also all rare divine grasses. Many of them had already gone extinct even after a long time. Yet there were countless of them here. Nirvana flame, thunder immortal fruit, soul-snatching illusory ginseng, measureless treasure flower, there were only things he couldn't think of, not things he couldn't see. Ning Cheng felt ecstatic. He felt even more confident about finding the dim star gold hidden leaf in the 3rd level of the fantasy fruit garden. Ning Cheng was just about to open the spiritual storage bag in his hand when he suddenly felt something wrong. His spiritual consciousness could directly communicate with the storage ring and the quintessential world. Ning Cheng raised his hand, and a long spear weapon from the storage ring fell into his hand. He looked at the long spear weapon in his hand in doubt. Didn't they say that one couldn't use a spatial ring after entering the 1st level of the fantasy fruit garden? How could he still use it? Ning Cheng quickly put aside this doubt. It would be better for him if he could use it. He didn't need to put the divine grasses in the spiritual storage bag at all. He could just plant them in the true spirit world. Ning Cheng had a lot of experience in plundering the spiritual medicine garden. Therefore, even if there were many divine grasses here, he would sweep through them without leaving a trace. Ning Cheng secretly rejoiced in his heart. Fortunately, he could use the true spirit world here. Otherwise, his spiritual storage bag wouldn't have been able to hold so many divine grasses. An hour later, Ning Cheng finished collecting the divine grasses and stood in front of another gate. Unlike what Cheng Ho Tian said, there weren't 9 gates here, but only 1. Ning Cheng guessed that it was because he didn't come in through the 12 gates of the fantasy fruit garden, so it wasn't the original 9 gates that appeared. This time, Ning Cheng directly chose the 9 orifices heart pill. The main divine grass of the 9 orifices heart pill was the 9 orifices divine glass. This divine pill belonged to the top Tao nourishing spirit pills and was one of the most difficult Tao nourishing spirit pills to refine. The 9 orifices heart pill wasn't a Tao pill, but it could help Tao nourishing cultivators understand the Tao transformation realm and give them a glimmer of hope to advance to the Tao transformation realm. Moreover, it could cleanse the soul and purify the meridians. This kind of medicinal pill had a high value. Apart from being difficult to refine, the 9 orifices divine glass was also extremely precious. In the grand essence realm, rumors had it that the 9 orifices divine glass had long since become extinct. Ning Cheng had obtained at least a dozen 9 orifices divine glass on the first level of the fantasy fruit garden, so he naturally wouldn't be reluctant to part with it. The more difficult and precious the medicinal pill he refined, the more valuable the divine grasses would be after opening the gate. Because he didn't need to help the 3 sword mountains this time, Ning Cheng spent less time refining the pills. In less than a third of an incense stick worth of time, 12 special grade 9 orifices heart pills shot out from Ning Cheng's pill furnace and fell directly into the groove on the gate. The gate opened, and a rich aura of divine grasses rushed out. The 3 sword mountains activated the pill collecting technique, and the 12 special grade heaven balance pills shot out of the pill furnace. The 3 sword mountains stood up in surprise. As long as the heaven balance pills shot out of the pill furnace, it meant that he had a chance to enter the fantasy fruit garden. Sure enough, he saw the 3 remaining gates on the cliff in front of him. A passage appeared in front of him and led him into one of the gates. The 3 sword mountains suppressed the ecstasy in his heart and walked into the fantasy fruit garden step by step. At this moment, his admiration for Ning Cheng couldn't be expressed in words. He felt sure that Ning Cheng had entered the fantasy fruit garden first. A person who could guide him to refine a furnace of special grade Tao sculpting spirit pills during his own alchemy. Just how powerful was his understanding of the Tao of alchemy? Refining 12 special grade spirit pills in one furnace was something that the 3 sword mountains had done occasionally, but it was only by chance. He believed that from today onwards, he would often refine special grade spirit pills. For no other reason than the pill restoration technique that Ning Cheng taught him. Chapter 967. Ning Cheng had just stepped through the door when he suddenly had a feeling that he had left something behind in the medicine garden. Just as Ning Cheng was about to turn around, several oppressive auras surrounded him. He saw that the door behind him had completely disappeared, and 6 human-shaped puppets surrounded him. Puppets belonged to the category of mechanisms in the true cultivation world. In addition to being proficient in mechanisms, one also needed to have strong artifact crafting skills and proficiency in the Tao of arrays to refine them. Although these 6 puppets couldn't use Tao techniques, their attacks weren't inferior to ordinary Tao sculpting holy emperors. Some of them could even rival late-stage Tao sculpting holy emperors. Ning Cheng could only bring out a middle-rank spirit artifact long spear, roll up a fixed range of spear patterns and shoot out. His 7 bridges spirit technique might be powerful, but using it against these puppets was equivalent to playing the lute to a cow. Maybe when he reached grand completion of the 7 bridges spirit technique, he could easily sweep away these puppets with the 7 bridges spirit technique. But not now. The time wheel was the best way to deal with them, but Ning Cheng didn't dare to use it. As the time wheel swept past, everything turned into nothingness. This was the medicine garden, and as the time wheel swept past, Ning Cheng guessed that there weren't many divine grasses here. Bang bang bang. The spear patterns blasted into the puppets, temporarily suppressing the momentum of these puppets. The body of the long spear slammed into the shoulder of one of the puppets, causing the puppet's shoulder to collapse. Ning Cheng breathed in a sigh of relief. These puppets didn't seem to be as powerful as he had imagined. But the next moment, Ning Cheng froze. The puppet whose shoulder he had blasted off actually began to repair itself. Then, a clear and rich stream of spirit essence poured into the puppet's body from the medicine garden. In just a moment, the puppet returned to its original state. So that's how it was. Ning Cheng stared blankly at the puppets tearing through his domain and finally understood what he had lost. To provide so many precious divine grasses in the medicine garden and grow so luxuriantly, there must be a divine spring underground. It was just like Pil Sage Min Kong's divine grass garden in the Grand Essence Mystic Realm, which also contained rich spirit essence. As a result, there was also a spirit vein underground. What he missed was the rich spirit essence in the medicine garden in front of him. Now, these puppets relied on the spirit essence under the medicine garden to move and even repair themselves. In the god spirit chi that had just surged up, he had also sensed a kind of wood origin aura. At this time, the 6 puppets once again pressed down on Ning Cheng. Fortunately, these puppets could not display any spiritual techniques and could only rely on their formidable strength to suppress Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng understood that the actual threat of these puppets was only average. Therefore, he didn't continue to hold back. He stimulated all his spirit essence and swept out with his spear. These spear patterns, which almost caused space to tremble, swept out and forced the 6 puppets to stop. Ning Cheng's long spear instantly crushed through the bodies of the 6 puppets, causing a piercing sound to ring out. Bang bang bang. The 6 puppets were directly paralyzed by Ning Cheng's spear as they fell to the ground. Ning Cheng did not even have time to breathe a sigh of relief as he stared in shock at the 6 paralyzed puppets. Bursts of dense wood origin energy gushed out from the ground and rapidly flowed into the bodies of the 6 puppets. The 6 puppets seemed to be trembling non-stop. At this rate, the 6 puppets would soon recover. Such a powerful recovery ability? Ning Cheng directly brought out the nameless flame and threw it out. The nameless flame fell on one of the puppets, and the puppet's recovery speed seemed to slow down. However, Ning Cheng didn't know what material this puppet was made of, but it couldn't be burned in one go. If I can't burn it all at once, then I'll burn it slowly. Ning Cheng's thoughts had just come out when he saw a huge hourglass in the distance. This hourglass was suspended in the air by an array formation, and the fine sand inside it kept flowing down. What was going on? Would he be teleported out if he didn't get out of this medicine garden by the time the hourglass ended? Ning Cheng's heart tightened as he thought of this. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. These puppets didn't have strong combat power, which meant that it was a waste of his time. It wasn't easy for him to come here, and he hadn't even entered the Dao fruit garden. He hadn't even seen the dim star gold hidden leaves. How could he leave like this? Ning Cheng no longer had the mood to talk with these puppets. He directly threw out the underworld crow ghost Rotan King and said a few words. He then quickly locked the puppets and rushed into the spiritual medicine garden. He didn't dare to gamble. If he got teleported out, it would be bad. The level of this spiritual medicine garden was higher than the one he just came from. It was divided into 3 sections, and each section of the spiritual medicine garden was sealed with restrictions. Ning Cheng didn't care about damaging the divine grasses and directly blasted the restrictions with the time wheel. He wanted to remove the restrictions on these 3 sections of the spiritual medicine garden in the shortest time possible, collect the divine grasses here, and then head to the next level of the spiritual medicine garden. When he smashed the restrictions on the first section of the spiritual medicine garden, Ning Cheng felt relieved when he saw the underworld crow ghost Rotan King locking the 6 paralyzed puppets on the ground. Although the underworld crow ghost Rotan King's level was low, these puppets were completely paralyzed. As long as he didn't let these puppets recover, it would be fine. Ning Cheng also felt the underworld crow ghost Rotan King crazily absorbing the familiar wood origin spiritual essence. But it had nothing to do with him. The spiritual essence here didn't belong to him. The underworld crow ghost Rotan King was his. The more the underworld crow ghost Rotan King absorbed, the better. When Ning Cheng collected all the divine grasses in the 3 sections of the spiritual medicine garden, he found that the hourglass only had half an incense stick worth of time left. Ning Cheng quickly rushed to the front of the underworld crow ghost Rotan King. He was just about to help the underworld crow ghost Rotan King kill the 6 puppets when he found that the 6 puppets were truly crippled this time. There was no movement, nor any aura pouring into them to repair them. The underworld crow ghost Rotan King's strength had reached the full circle of Starry Sky Grade 8, and it gave off the aura of an imminent breakthrough. Ning Cheng wanted to put away the underworld crow ghost Rotan King. He planned to let the underworld crow ghost Rotan King come out before surmounting the tribulation. Since he couldn't surmount the tribulation in this place, he would have to go to the mysterious yellow bead to surmount the tribulation. Since this place was arranged by a powerhouse, Ning Qing didn't dare to use the mysterious yellow bead here. The underworld crow ghost Ratan King, which Ning Qing had always been commanding, didn't immediately put away. Instead, it sent out some urgent messages. You said there's a wood origin attributed spirit vein below? Ning Qing spoke up in shock. Sure enough, the underworld crow ghost Ratan King's feedback confirmed that there was a familiar wood origin spirit vein below. Ning Qing took in a deep breath. No wonder the divine grasses here were so lush. It turned out to be like this. Looking at the hourglass that was about to disappear, Ning Qing resisted the greed in his heart. He put away the underworld crow ghost Ratan King and the 6 puppets and rushed to the next door. If he had such a spirit vein, he could open up a huge spirit herb garden in the mysterious yellow bead. Even the Dao fruit tree, which he had been cultivating with the law soil and hadn't shown any signs of movement, would blossom and bear fruit. Fortunately, he knew that he couldn't touch this wood origin attributed spirit vein right now. First, he didn't have the time. Second, he knew that this spirit vein ran through the entire fantasy orchard. Even if he couldn't get it here, he could go to another level to get it. Most importantly, he didn't know what the consequences of taking away this spirit vein would be. Once he took away this spirit vein, the entire Grand Essence realm would know about it. Even if he was a Dao transformation pill saint and had Qing Houtian's protection, he wouldn't be able to bear the anger and jealousy of the masses. Standing in front of the door leading to the 3rd level of the fantasy orchard, Ning Qing took out the alchemy materials for the He Bodhi pill. The main divine grasses for the He Bodhi pill were the Heaven Harmony Immortal Grass and the Bodhi Earth Lotus. The Bodhi Earth Lotus was also an extinct divine grass. The reason why Ning Qing had it was because he had just obtained it from this place. From this, one could tell how many extinct divine grasses were in the fantasy orchard. The He Bodhi pill was a top-notch Dao transformation spirit pill. After taking this pill, one could see the flaws in one's Dao heart and cultivation method, and then improve them. One could say that before advancing to the Dao essence realm, the value of a He Bodhi pill couldn't be measured in spirit crystals. Apart from the Bodhi Earth Lotus being too precious, it was also extremely difficult to refine. Once the furnace of He Bodhi pills was completed, the hourglass would soon run out. Ning Qing rushed in the moment the door in front of him opened. In the City Master Mansion's guest hall, everyone was still talking about who opened the 13th door. This discussion lasted for a few hours, but there was still no conclusion. Those pill deities who failed to refine pills and got teleported out had no idea who opened the 13th door of the fantasy orchard. I heard that the medicine garden of the 13th door of the fantasy orchard is completely different from the medicine gardens of the 12 doors below. It contains some extinct or extremely precious divine grasses. If the alchemist who went in really obtained these and took out these divine grasses to pass them on, it would bring great merit to our Grand Essence realm. A tall man with a purple copper face spoke with a solemn tone. Everyone present knew who the speaker was. Sect Master Fei Feng of the Profound Moon Spirit Gate. Ever since the previous Sect Master of the Profound Moon Spirit Gate, Qi Zhangge, met with an accident, Grand Elder Fei Feng took over as the Sect Master. No one here was a fool. Everyone understood what Fei Feng meant. That is, no matter who entered the 13th door, the rare and extinct divine grasses he obtained should be shared with everyone. This way, these rare medicinal herbs wouldn't go extinct again. The reason was honorable and honorable. But why would someone give them the rare divine grasses they obtained? Fei Feng said this because his Profound Moon Spirit Gate didn't have any alchemy experts. Sect Master Fei's words make sense. No matter who it is, they should stand in the perspective of our Grand Essence domain and the Grand Essence realm and consider all the cultivators of the Grand Essence realm. 9 Revolutions Sacred Dao Pan Shi Tianhe immediately stood up and echoed. I'm just afraid that the alchemist who went in can take out these rare divine grasses. Profound Moon Spirit Gate doesn't have enough resources to bid for them. A Dao transformation divine emperor from the Great God Pill sect chuckled. His cultivation couldn't compare to Fei Feng. However, because of Jing Han, the Great God Pill sect was like the sun in the sky. Fei Feng snorted coldly. The fantasy orchard was originally established by the seniors of the Grand Essence Realm. In addition to the development of the Grand Essence Realm, they also had another purpose, which is to leave behind the extinct divine grasses. Now that the 13th door has been opened, we should follow the wishes of the seniors of the Grand Essence Realm. How can we talk about competing? Chapter 968. If it's not yours, you might break your teeth if you take it back by force. If our immortal corpse sex pill master enters the 13th Dao door, we won't take out those rare god spirit herbs. I want to see who dares to take them from our immortal corpse sect. A man with a dark red face sneered. Fei Feng was annoyed but didn't say anything. There was a 90% chance that the pill divine who entered the 13th Dao door was great god pill sex Jing Han. He didn't understand why the Immortal Corpse sect was so blind to speak for the Great God Pill sect. The Immortal Corpse sect was very strange. His Mystic Moon God sect only had one primordial essence divine emperor. He had only been the sect leader for a short time and didn't have Qi Changwei's confidence. This time, he came to Heaven Essence Sacred City to participate in the City Master's banquet mainly to find some Dao fruits and cultivate some forces belonging to his side. Therefore, he ignored Chun Fei from the Immortal Corpse sect. Everyone, stop arguing. Once someone enters the 3rd level of the Fantasy Garden, the door-opening pill refined will appear on the crystal screen. If there really was an extinct divine herb, then pill refiners would definitely use it in order to obtain more and more precious spiritual herbs. Everyone look, someone has already appeared on the 2nd level. It looks like it's the pill master who opened the 13th Dao door. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before he enters the 3rd layer of the Fantasy Garden. A woman spoke up to stop the argument. She was only a Dao actualization divine emperor, but no one objected. Everyone here knew her. She was the vice leader of the Pill Association, Qing Yi Divine Emperor. She was also a Dao actualization pill god. Moreover, Sacred Emperor Qing Yi was right. As she spoke, 9 doors appeared on the 2nd level of the crystal screen. A pill refiner landed in front of these 9 doors. The pill master checked the surroundings before taking out his pill cauldron and starting concocting pills. As soon as the pill master started concocting pills, a list of pill names appeared on the crystal screen. How is this possible? A Dao actualization divine emperor said in shock. This was indeed impossible. For the door-opening pill concocted by the pill master to appear on the crystal screen, it would only appear after the 3rd level door was opened. Right now, the alchemist in front of the door of the 9 doors had just sat down on the 2nd floor of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. He hadn't even refined the pill to open the door of the 2nd floor of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. How could the name of the door-opening pill appear on the crystal screen? With Bodhi Dan? Am I seeing things? It's really Hepu Dan? The guests in the hall could no longer remain calm. Hepu Dan was ranked first. There really are extinct divine herbs and Bodhi pills that require the Bodhi Earth Lotus. The Bodhi Earth Lotus has been extinct in the Grand Essence Realm for many years. But now, it has appeared again. Waves of exclamations and gasps rang out. Most of the people in the hall stood up in excitement. Apart from peak-level holy emperors, those who came here were peak-level alchemy gods or alchemy saints. Everyone was very clear about the main divine herbs of the Bodhi pill. Ranked 2nd is the 9 Orifices Heart pill. Heavens, the 9 Orifices God Glass is an extinct divine herb. Ranked 3rd is the Primordial Tranquil Elixir. Although this kind of Dao modeling divine elixir is not extinct, it is as difficult to refine as an ordinary Dao transformation divine elixir. This person actually used this kind of pill to open the 1st level of the Illusion Garden. No wonder he could open the 13th door of the Illusion Garden. No one in the hall could calm down anymore. Everyone felt as if their hearts were being clawed by a cat. Everyone knew that one of the alchemists who entered the Illusion Garden this time was an extremely powerful fellow. This fellow had really opened the most valuable part of the Illusion Garden. The hidden medicine garden within the Illusion Garden, which contained almost all extinct divine grasses. Why did extinct divine grasses go extinct? Because they were too important, everyone wanted to dig them up. Plus, These divine grasses were very difficult to grow. It would be strange if they didn't go extinct. Lu Jiexing clenched his fists in excitement. No matter who opened the hidden medicine garden in the illusion garden, he would get at least 20%. In any case, he would get a part of the extinct divine grasses. In this way, the Lu clan would become the premier clan in the Grand Essence realm even faster. Association Master, my pill association's medicine garden doesn't have the 9 orifices god glass or the Bodhi earth lotus. Moreover, it's just 2 medicinal pills. From this, it can be seen that this alchemist has even more extinct divine grasses. The Pill Association's Deputy Association Master, Holy Emperor Qin Yi, couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Cheng Hotian. Cheng Hotian frowned secretly. He guessed that Ning Cheng should have opened the 13th door. But whether this was a good thing or a bad thing for Ning Cheng, he didn't know. When Holy Emperor Qin Yi asked about it, he could only sigh and say, "No matter who this person is, my Pill Association will stand on his side." Yes. Holy Emperor Qin Yi felt puzzled but still gave an affirmative answer. If Holy Emperor Qin Yi could think of this, who else could? Needless to say, this alchemist who opened the hidden medicine garden in the illusion garden had many extinct divine grasses on him. Ning Cheng didn't know that the people in the guest hall already knew that he had obtained many extinct divine grasses. But even if they knew, he wouldn't care about it. The divine grasses obtained from the 2 medicine gardens in the illusion garden gave him a huge surprise. He needed dozens of times more resources than others for cultivation. Moreover, he had many people around him who also needed a lot of resources. No matter how many divine grasses he had, he wouldn't complain about it. By this time, Ning Cheng had already refined a batch of top-quality Bodhi pills. He then opened the door to the 3rd floor of the illusion garden and entered. There was also an hourglass suspended in the air on this floor. Ning Cheng estimated that this hourglass would last for about an hour. Seeing this, Ning Cheng breathed out a sigh of relief. There were no puppets blocking the way here. With 2 hours to squander, it was more than enough for him. During these 2 hours, he could easily collect the divine grasses here and enter the 4th floor of the illusion garden. When he entered this medicine garden, Ning Cheng saw the divine grasses in the distance. These divine grasses were surrounded by a crystal restriction. There weren't many divine grasses in the crystal restriction, only a little more than 100. It was far less than the number of divine grasses in the first 2 doors. This made Ning Cheng feel a little disappointed. But when Ning Cheng walked to the front of the crystal medicine garden, his heart started pounding with excitement. There were indeed only a little more than 100 divine grasses here. But each of the divine grasses here was either extremely precious or a treasure that had gone extinct in the outside world. Buddha light branch, unfettered dragon leaf, rainbow light vine, reincarnation tear flower, especially the reincarnation tear flower. This divine grass was even more precious than many Tao fruits. It had long since gone extinct in the Grand Essence realm. Ning Cheng's gaze swept from these extinct divine grasses to the back, and his heart grew even more ecstatic. Behind him was a row of Tao fruit trees. These Tao fruit trees weren't very tall, and there were more than a dozen of them. Moreover, the falling scar Tao fruit tree turned out to be the worst among these Tao fruit trees. Ning Cheng immediately recalled that Kong Ning had asked him to borrow points for a falling scar Tao fruit. Kong Ning, a disciple of one of the 10 major sects, found it so difficult to obtain a falling scar Tao fruit. But how many did he see here? There were at least 20 or 30 of them. Ning Cheng's surprise quickly faded. He swept through the divine grasses and Tao fruit trees a few times but didn't see any beautiful star-hidden golden leaves. Ning Cheng desperately wanted to enter this floor. The beautiful star-hidden golden leaves were the divine grasses he wanted the most, but he didn't see any. Ning Cheng quickly calmed down. Just because there weren't any on this floor didn't mean that there weren't any on the next floor. He decided to move away all the Tao fruit trees on this floor and then move to the next floor. These things were very important to him. Whether it was the restrictions around the medicine garden or the various array formations, Ning Cheng had broken through too many of them. In the 2nd floor of the fantasy fruit garden, he had also forcibly broken through 3 restrictions. Therefore, Ning Cheng didn't take this crystal restriction seriously. Just as Ning Cheng was about to break through the restriction and carefully examine the crystal restriction with his spiritual consciousness, he suddenly felt dumbfounded. This was a restriction he had never seen before. Moreover, it was filled with violent power. Even if he hadn't started, Ning Cheng could guess that once he forcibly broke through the crystal restriction in this medicine garden, the violent power would destroy the entire medicine garden. After looking at it for a few minutes, Ning Cheng carefully placed his hand on the crystal restriction. He sensed a faint flow of spiritual spirit essence qi. What is this? Ning Cheng immediately took out a crippled humanoid puppet from his ring and immediately understood what was going on. This crystal covering the divine grasses and Dao fruits wasn't a restriction, but a refining method similar to the one used to refine puppets. To be precise, this was another form of puppet. Or rather, it was a crystal restriction that had nothing to do with array formations. It was refined using the same method used to refine puppets. If he forcibly attacked it, as long as the attack didn't cause too much damage, the crystal would automatically repair itself. If the attack was too powerful, the violent aura contained within it could even raze this place to the ground. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng directly brought out his long spear and blasted it at the crystal restriction. Sure enough, before he could even put away his long spear, the trace left behind by the attack disappeared, and the crystal returned to its original state. Ning Cheng finally understood why 6 humanoid puppets appeared in the medicine garden in front of him, which didn't pose much of a threat to him. It turned out that the powerhouse who arranged this medicine garden did it on purpose. He wanted the people who came later to learn the puppetry technique from these 6 puppets and then open this crystal restriction. To put it bluntly, the powerhouse who arranged the fantasy fruit garden didn't intend to let anyone open the crystal restriction and take away the divine grasses and Dao fruits. Because no one could learn the puppet technique in just an hour, unless they met a mechanism master who already knew the puppet technique. In fact, such a possibility was almost non-existent. Only a powerful pill sage could enter this place. If a person became a pill sage, how could they spend the time to learn the puppet technique from a heretical path? Moreover, the puppet technique was so powerful. Ning Cheng's heart turned cold, but it soon turned hot again. Since he came here, he had to find the dim star gold hidden leaf. The dim star gold hidden leaf was a divine grass that contained the laws of heaven and earth. It was most likely on the 4th floor of the fantasy fruit garden. Ning Cheng didn't know what the powerhouse who arranged the fantasy fruit garden meant by arranging the crystal restriction here. Since they didn't want people to enter the next floor, why would they take out the puppets for people to comprehend? Maybe this was the means of a powerhouse. If they didn't give people a chance to exit, it might affect the Dao heart of the person who arranged it. Was this the meaning of the heavenly Dao? No matter what it meant, he had to go to the next floor. Chapter 969. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng put down all his thoughts and focused all his attention on the humanoid puppet he had just taken out. For other pill saints, it might have ended here. However, he was different from others because he cultivated the mysterious yellow origin cultivation method, the mysterious yellow formless. Formless and invisible, as long as something had a form, it would not be able to hide from his deductions and would appear clearly and unmistakably. The only thing he worried about was whether he could comprehend the puppet technique and break the crystal restriction covering this medicine garden before the sand leak ended. Ning Cheng's mind was completely immersed in the humanoid puppet he had just smashed. His spiritual consciousness did not have the slightest scruple as it slowly broke through the puppet's obstruction and restrictions. The Dark Nether Spirit Eater provided Ning Cheng with great help at this time. Some of the restrictions that others would have to peel off slowly, under the tearing of his spiritual consciousness, it directly broke through. When Ning Cheng fell into the deductions of the mysterious yellow formless, the mysterious yellow origin aura almost completely surrounded him, and the puppet refining method gradually took shape in Ning Cheng's mind. At this moment, the entire medicine garden was abnormally silent except for the sound of the sand leak. Ning Cheng was not only a pill saint, but he was also an artifact crafting powerhouse. Although the puppet technique was separate, it still belonged to a branch of artifact crafting. With the help of the origin deduction, Ning Cheng only took half an hour before he opened his eyes again. He knew that he could now refine a humanoid puppet by himself. However, Ning Cheng did not show even half a shred of surprise in his eyes. Although he could refine a puppet, it did not mean that he could break the puppet's crystal cover. Although he understood the puppet refining method, he did not understand how the puppet provided the divine spiritual essence qi. He also did not understand why the 6 humanoid puppets could recover so quickly. Without understanding these things, even if he could refine a humanoid puppet, it would still be useless. What's more, the level of the humanoid puppets he could refine right now was simply too low. Compared to the 6 humanoid puppets he had dealt with before, they were on a completely different level. Even if he figured out how the humanoid puppet provided the divine spiritual qi, or even how it recovered, he wouldn't be able to use the puppet techniques he had learned in this 1 hour to break this crystal restriction that was refined using puppet techniques. Whether in theory or in practice, he could not complete this difficult task. Unless he had the kind of time array disk that Song Wei had mentioned. Unfortunately, that kind of thing was just too precious, at least he had never seen it before. Ning Cheng gave out a sigh. He then took out the other 5 crippled humanoid puppets from his ring. He studied the human-shaped puppets for the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. Seeing the sand in the hourglass decreasing, Ning Cheng grew more and more anxious. He sighed and finally gave up on continuing to study the puppet technique. Instead, he sent a spiritual consciousness message to the Underworld Crow Ghost Ratan King. Underworld Crow Ghost Ratan, when you were entangling those puppets, did you find anything unusual? At this moment, the Underworld Crow Ghost Ratan was immersed in the joy of its sudden increase in strength. As long as it could successfully cross the tribulation outside, it would become a Starry Sky Grade 9 demonic Ratan. In just a short time, it had almost reached Starry Sky Grade 9. Compared to the long years it had spent growing up, now it would laugh even in its dreams. Following behind the master, no, it should be called master, something Big Brother Chasing Bull had told him about. As long as it followed behind its master, it might even have the chance to take on a human form. Now that Ning Cheng asked, how could it dare to neglect? It quickly sent out a spiritual consciousness message. It wanted to tell its master everything it knew. These humanoid puppets could absorb wood-attributed spirit essence. Moreover, they had a starry sky demon plant inside their bodies, called the invisible stone stem. A bolt of lightning flashed through Ning Cheng's mind, as if he wanted to grasp something. He suddenly stood up and asked eagerly, what is that invisible stone stem? The Underworld Crow Ghost Ratan King's spiritual consciousness message came again. The invisible stone stem is an extremely rare starry sky demon plant. It has only a stone-like seed, and the stone stem that germinates and grows is invisible. Although invisible, it has a strong survivability. The longest invisible stone stem can extend its invisible roots hundreds of miles away from the starry sky. The easiest way to destroy the invisible stone stem is to suck out all the essence qi from the seed of the invisible stone stem. That way, the invisible stone stem will die completely and can no longer absorb spirit essence qi. That's how I did it. Ning Cheng gave a hearty laugh. What did he mean by, without any effort? That was it. He had thought of all kinds of means, but he never thought that this humanoid puppet would be powered by the invisible stone stem seed. When that powerhouse refined these humanoid puppets, he controlled the growth of these invisible stone stems, which allowed them to form invisible roots inside the puppet's body. These roots acted like the human body's blood vessels and meridians, providing the puppet with the ability to move. Ning Cheng didn't show any leniency and immediately threw out array flags. In just a dozen breaths, the spiritual aura around the crystal started to weaken. Absorb! Ning Cheng gave a shout, and the Underworld Crow Ghost Ratan King started crazily absorbing the wood origin spirit essence qi inside the invisible stone stem seeds. The invisible stone stems didn't have much combat ability, and their biggest role was to support. Whether it was to support the humanoid puppet or to support the crystal restriction. However, support was their greatest ability. Now that Ning Cheng isolated the spirit essence qi underground with an array formation, The underworld crow ghost Rattan King crazily absorbed the essence chi inside the invisible stone stem seeds. In less than half an incense stick worth of time, the crystal restriction cracked open. After a few breaths, a kacha sound emerged, and the weird crystal restriction completely disappeared. The rich smell of divine grasses and the fragrance of Dao fruits mixed together, making people feel refreshed. From the beginning until Ning Cheng opened the crystal restriction, one could say that he didn't have to use the puppet technique at all. The trace of possibility left behind by the powerhouse who arranged the fantasy garden was a complete lie. He lied and wasted his time on studying the puppet technique. After an hour, even if he managed to study the puppet technique, it would all be in vain. Ning Cheng sighed. Sure enough, there was always a teacher in a group of 3. He only had the underworld crow ghost Rattan King to teach him a lesson at this time and even helped him a lot. Breaking the crystal restriction, Ning Cheng didn't think too much about it and directly threw out one array flag after another. He wanted to move the entire medicine garden away, and he didn't feel even a little bit embarrassed about it. In just a few minutes, Ning Cheng moved the entire medicine garden. With a kacha sound, he moved the entire medicine garden into the true spirit world. The medicine garden moved away, along with all the divine grasses and Dao fruits within the medicine garden. However, Ning Cheng felt dumbfounded. He didn't see the entrance to the 4th floor of the fantasy garden appear in front of him like he had imagined. Looking at the hourglass, which was now less than half an incense stick worth of time, Ning Cheng felt extremely anxious. Even if he found the entrance to the 4th floor of the fantasy garden, he most likely wouldn't have the time to refine pills to open the door. Ning Cheng didn't hold back his spiritual consciousness and blasted it out one after another. At this moment, he could see the powerful spiritual consciousness attack. After more than a dozen breaths, a concealment restriction appeared in the range of Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness. Ning Cheng didn't even think about it and threw out one array flag after another. Now that he couldn't find a way out, he wouldn't let go of any place that might lead him to the 4th floor of the fantasy garden. This concealment restriction wasn't powerful, and under Ning Cheng's array flags, it quickly revealed itself. This was an orchard. To be precise, it was a Dao orchard because it was filled with Dao fruit trees. Ning Cheng rushed over and looked at the rows of Dao fruit trees in front of him in shock. He roughly glanced around and found that there were at least 50 or 60 of them. What was going on? There was no 4th floor, no 5th floor, and no 6th floor. After he broke the crystal restriction on the 3rd floor, so many Dao fruit trees appeared. Moreover, these Dao fruit trees ranged from Dao sculpting Dao fruit to Dao transformation Dao fruit. There were even more than a dozen of them, but Ning Cheng couldn't even identify them. Most likely, this was the essence of the fantasy garden, the real fantasy garden. Ning Cheng looked back at the hourglass and estimated that it didn't even have a quarter of an incense stick worth of time left. Not good, Ning Cheng instantly understood. These Dao fruit gardens were connected. Most likely, once the hourglass ended, he would be teleported out. Chapter 970. Ning Cheng's first thought was to dig up all of these Dao fruit trees. But after digging up a few, he understood that it was unlikely. The Dao fruit trees here were different from the previous medicine garden. Every Dao fruit tree here was protected by restrictions. By the time he removed the restrictions and started digging again, half an incense stick's worth of time would have already passed. At this moment, the underworld crow ghost Rattan King's spiritual sense once again transmitted over, "Master, remove these restrictions. I can dig up the Dao fruit tree." Ning Cheng's heart moved. He might not have enough time, but the underworld crow ghost Rattan King could. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng immediately threw out a large number of array flags, which instantly weakened the restrictions around him. Just as the sand was about to run out, a cracking sound came from the restriction. The moment the restriction shattered, the underworld crow ghost Rattan King's roots, which had already stretched out, rolled up the tumbling soil and swept away all the Dao fruit trees. Ning Cheng looked back at the sand in the hourglass and found that after all the sand had dried up, there were still a few breaths of time left in the hourglass. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness deliberately selected a batch of low-level divine grasses and put them into the spiritual storage bag. At this time, when the sand had completely leaked out, Ning Cheng felt a powerful force coming towards him. Ning Cheng had just thought of this, when a ghostly aura rushed into Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, not giving Ning Cheng any time to react. If he had not been attacked at the moment of the transmission, then with Ning Cheng's formidable sea of consciousness defense, this ghost-like aura would never have been able to invade his sea of consciousness. It could be said that the timing of this aura was perfect. A raging tearing force slammed into Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness. At this moment, Ning Cheng felt as if his soul had fallen into a huge blender, about to be devoured by a terrifying force. Immediately Ning Cheng felt that his control over his body was getting weaker and weaker, as if his body was about to leave him. Oh, such a powerful sea of consciousness, such a powerful spiritual soul. A surprised voice resounded in the depths of Ning Cheng's consciousness. No, this is the starry sky sea of consciousness? And it's all 8 types of spirit roots, and every single one of them is top-notch. Oh my God. This voice was no longer astonished, but ecstatic. He was like a man who was dying of thirst in the desert and suddenly saw a huge lake. Possession? Ning Cheng understood it in an instant. Because he had experienced possession before, he immediately knew that someone wanted to possess his body. How dare you steal my body? You're courting death. Even if I have to risk my life, I'll kill you. Everlasting Blue Thunder City, protect my Zifu Sea of Consciousness. Celestial River Flame, burn this bastard to death for this father. Ning Cheng's everlasting Blue Thunder Fort instantly condensed in his sea of consciousness, forming a city of lightning arcs. At the same time, the celestial river flame also turned violent at this moment. What he was least afraid of was possession. He did not expect that he would once again encounter possession in this place. At this time Ning Cheng finally understood the purpose of the existence of the fantasy garden. The fantasy garden must have been built by this fellow who wanted to take over his body. Maybe he did intend to contribute to the grand essence realm. However, it was more likely that he was looking for a true target for possession. This target was an alchemist who could open the 13th door of the fantasy garden, and he had coincidentally opened the 13th door. Wait, I don't want my sea of consciousness to be destroyed. If you don't resist, I'll let you reincarnate or refine a body for you. Just as Ning Cheng brought out the everlasting Blue Thunder City and the celestial river flame and prepared to launch a crazy counterattack, a voice rang out in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness. Ning Cheng was so angry that he couldn't help but laugh out loud. This fellow actually thought that his sea of consciousness was his, and even spoke such shameless words. I've been waiting for the person to open the 13th door for 1,090,000 years. Originally, the fantasy garden only opened once every 10,000 years. Later, I changed it to 1,000 years, and then 100 years. But I still couldn't find the person I was waiting for. Originally, I wanted to give up after a while, but the heavens took pity on me and finally let me find you. Your starry sky sea of consciousness is perfect, and I don't want my attack to cause any problems. You are also the most powerful person I've ever seen with a spiritual soul, so I hope that you won't attack me. I'm willing. Before the possessing soul could finish speaking, Ning Cheng's celestial river flame blasted out. Stop talking nonsense with this father. Do you still have any face? Did my sea of consciousness become yours? Whether my sea of consciousness is a starry sky or not, whether it's perfect or not, what does it have to do with you? Die for this father. Boom. A sudden flame rushed out and completely intertwined with Ning Cheng's celestial river flame. A terrifying heat spread out, causing Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness to tumble. Ning Cheng's eyes widened. This flame that blocked the celestial river flame in his sea of consciousness was definitely not any lower in grade than the celestial river flame. Otherwise, he would not have felt such a terrible burning sensation. One could say that if not for the celestial river flame and the everlasting Blue Thunder City's protection, his sea of consciousness might have already collapsed. No, he must not let this life essence continue to fight in his sea of consciousness. This was his territory, he had to end this quickly. You actually have a spirit-grade celestial river flame. Heavens, is that the everlasting blue thunder city? I can even feel a trace of origin aura. The voice of the spiritual soul in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness grew more and more trembling. It was completely shocked by the things reflected in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness and could no longer suppress the ecstasy in its heart. As long as he could possess Ning Cheng, all these things would belong to him. Stop, or I can destroy your spiritual consciousness and sea of consciousness in an instant. After the spiritual soul expressed its thoughts, an even more terrifying aura filled Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, as if it wanted to devour Ning Cheng's entire sea of consciousness in the next moment. Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll? Ning Cheng spoke up in shock. He was too familiar with the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. He had obtained this cultivation method and spent a lot of time perfecting this cultivation method. Hey, you also know about the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll? That's for the best. Since you know about the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, you should also know that as long as I cast the Dark Consciousness Storm to trap your spiritual soul and drag you into the spiritual consciousness storm space, you would not be able to attack me anymore and could only let me kill you. If I cast the Devouring Spirit Scroll again, your sea of consciousness would not be enough for me to devour. The only reason I didn't do it was because I didn't want to damage such a perfect sea of consciousness. The spiritual soul in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, on seeing that Ning Cheng even knew about the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, spoke in a relaxed tone. The ignorant were fearless. He feared that Ning Cheng did not know about the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. But now that Ning Cheng knew about it, he felt relieved. Ning Cheng sneered in his heart. After knowing that the other party also knew the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, he understood why the other party didn't attack. Ning Cheng didn't know if the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll was created by this fellow or not. This cultivation method was similar to the transformation technique Grand Method. After devouring the spiritual consciousness, it would leave behind a sequela. After he devoured the opponent's spiritual consciousness, it caused a trace of foreign spiritual consciousness to appear in his sea of consciousness. In the end, with the help of the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill, the hidden danger was completely solved. This fellow's sea of consciousness collapsed. Maybe it was because he devoured too much foreign spiritual consciousness and couldn't get rid of it, which led to his death. It's not that you don't dare to use the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. If I'm not wrong, your predecessor devoured too much foreign spiritual consciousness and fell, right? Ning Cheng spoke with disdain. You really know about it. The spiritual soul calmed down after Ning Cheng learned about it. Yes, that's why I don't want to devour your spiritual consciousness. But you should know that if I wanted to devour your spiritual consciousness, even if you have the everlasting Blue Thunder City and the Celestial River, you wouldn't be able to escape. Moreover, even if I don't devour your spiritual consciousness, I can still destroy your spiritual soul with my spiritual consciousness storm. You're looking for an alchemy powerhouse to take over the body, presumably to solve the hidden dangers of the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, right? Ning Cheng asked while preparing to attack. Ning Cheng wasn't afraid of possession, but this spiritual soul was the most powerful one he had ever encountered. An ordinary spiritual soul, after entering his sea of consciousness, wouldn't last for more than a quarter of an hour. But this spiritual soul in front of him could confront him without falling into a disadvantageous position. Ning Cheng had never seen such a person before. This spiritual soul didn't seem to want Ning Cheng to destroy his starry sky sea of consciousness. Instead, his tone slowed down a bit. Yes, you're smart. I'm looking for a genius pill sage to take over the body to solve the hidden dangers of the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. You can give up your body and leave behind the inherited memories of alchemy. I promise I won't destroy you. Ning Cheng showed a smile. I'll ask you a question. I have an 8-element spiritual root. Generally speaking, I should be the weakest in cultivation. But you seem happy to know about it. The spiritual soul heard Ning Cheng's question and spoke up in a calm voice. That's because they are ignorant. Only those with all-element spiritual roots can truly aspire to the top of the heavenly Tao. The best spiritual roots in the world are not single-element pure spiritual roots, but all-element spiritual roots. You not only have all-element spiritual roots, but also all-element pure spiritual roots. With your body, I can naturally aspire to the top of the heavenly Tao. To be honest, your sea of consciousness is the purest and most powerful I've ever seen. If it were an ordinary person, I would have taken his body a long time ago. As the spiritual soul spoke up to hear, the dark nether-devouring spirit scroll suddenly rolled out. The spiritual consciousness storm and spiritual consciousness chop blasted towards Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness without any scruples. Die for me. The spiritual soul snorted disdainfully while attacking. A mere Tao sculpting ant dared to bargain with him. With this body, the celestial river flame, the everlasting blue thunder city, and the origin aura, how could he leave it to the other party? Ning Cheng's disdainful voice arrived. I knew you weren't honest. Spiritual consciousness storm, roll. Dark nether devouring spirit, devour. You also cultivate the dark nether devouring spirit scroll? Impossible, absolutely impossible. The spiritual soul in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness exclaimed. Cultivating the dark nether devouring spirit scroll, and even daring to devour spiritual consciousness, how could the starry sky sea of consciousness be so pure? It felt that Ning Cheng's dark nether devouring spirit scroll was much more powerful than its own. If its dark nether devouring spirit scroll was a small stream, then Ning Cheng's dark nether devouring spirit scroll was a surging river. Not only did it carry a terrifying devouring aura, but it also carried a crushing and crazy momentum. Chapter 971. You stop. Feeling Ning Cheng's terrifying and powerful attack, the spiritual soul that had invaded Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness was truly afraid. Ning Cheng acted as if he had not heard the other party's words, as his spiritual sense surged within his sea of consciousness, causing a terrifying killing intent to condense out. You want to take my body? Go to hell. Celestial river flame, continue to burn for this father. Time wheel, shovel this garbage into dregs for this father. First bridge of helplessness, raise it for me. The second village gazing bridge, prepare it for me. Sunset's twilight, condense spear intent for me. None to depend on, suppress his spirit sense for me. The five-colored star splitter arrow. You don't have to shoot it. Just let it float in the air above the sea of consciousness. After sneaking into Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, he had thought that he would be able to kill Ning Cheng's spiritual soul. However, at this moment, he could only stare blankly at such a terrifying killing intent, one after another. He wanted to cry. Before, Ning Cheng had used the dark nether spirit devourer to suppress his spiritual consciousness swallowing technique. Combined with the celestial river flame's attack, he felt terrified. But now, this was not something that could be described as terrifying. If crying could resolve these attacks, he would have cried out long ago. At this moment, he could only mutter, "What kind of person am I trying to possess? Lunatic." He did not know if Ning Cheng was a madman, or if he himself was a madman, to actually want to possess such a perverted cultivator. If he was given another chance, he would rather possess a Tao integration powerhouse than come to Ning City. If this divine soul could vomit blood, it would have vomited 100 liters of blood. What kind of possession was this? It was like barging into a perverted dragon's pool and tiger's den. How was he supposed to fight back? He hadn't even made a move, and the other party's methods had already scared him to death. Cultivating the dark nether devouring spirit scroll, he had crushed too many sea of consciousness and seen all kinds of powerful sea of consciousness. However, compared to the sea of consciousness of this alchemist, it was just a drizzle. In his own sea of consciousness, this pill refiner could freely use his mystique and construct his own laws. What kind of game was this? Couldn't they have a proper offensive and defensive confrontation? Just when Ning Cheng was about to easily kill the spiritual soul that had invaded his sea of consciousness, the spiritual consciousness storm that he had locked onto the other party suddenly opened up a gap. Not waiting for Ning Cheng to react, the spiritual soul in his sea of consciousness rushed out of this gap and escaped from his sea of consciousness. The next moment, Ning Cheng felt a powerful force sweeping towards him. A hoarse voice rang in his ears. "This saint is ruthless. I can't beat you, so I'll let you have your way." Ning Cheng's expression turned ugly. He understood where the problem lay. It was the dark nether devouring spirit scroll. At this moment, Ning Cheng felt sure that the dark nether devouring spirit scroll was created by this person who wanted to possess his spiritual soul. Because of this, the other party was able to open a gap in his spiritual sense storm and escape. If he didn't use the dark nether devouring spirit scroll, this divine soul definitely wouldn't be able to escape. From the looks of it, the dark nether devouring spirit scroll was still incomplete. If he wanted to use this cultivation technique, he would have to spend some time perfecting it. This space belonged to this spiritual soul. Since it had escaped from his sea of consciousness, he could teleport it away. Sure enough, after that powerful force, a teleportation force swept over. As the teleportation force disappeared, Ning Cheng appeared next to the crystal screen in the middle of the city master's mansion's guest hall. Ning Cheng secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Since he had teleported out, he didn't suffer any losses. For the sake of the divine grasses and the Tao fruit tree, he didn't care about the essence spirit that wanted to possess him. Perhaps he didn't care about it. This essence spirit that wanted to possess him would also vomit up 3 liters of blood. It would truly be a double loss. Seeing Ning Cheng teleported out, not only did Jian Sanshan, who had just come out, feel a little puzzled, but even Cheng Hotian also felt a little puzzled. In Cheng Hotian's view, since Ning Cheng teleported out now, then Ning Cheng shouldn't be the one to open the 13th door. If he could open the 13th door, then he wouldn't have teleported out so early. Jian Sanshan felt puzzled because he knew about Ning Cheng's alchemy methods and knew that he shouldn't have teleported out so early. The spiritual consciousness of all the people in the main hall fell on Ning Cheng's spiritual storage bag. Unfortunately, Ning Cheng's spiritual storage bag could not be swept through with their spiritual consciousness. Apparently, Ning Cheng had added an array formation to shield his spiritual consciousness. It looks like the person who refined the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill is truly powerful. Since he only came out at this time, then he should have entered the 2nd floor of the fantasy fruit garden, right? Man Huishan's voice came over slowly, as if afraid that others wouldn't know that Ning Cheng had entered the 2nd floor of the fantasy fruit garden. Ning Cheng glanced at Man Huishan coldly. "How many times I've entered is none of your business. Remember what you said just now. You'd better not have any bad intentions. Otherwise, hee." Man Huishan's expression changed slightly, but he didn't speak again. The people in the guest hall stared at Ning Cheng and Man Huishan in confusion. Some of them felt that there seemed to be some secret between the two. "Brother Ning, come here." Jian Sanshan's voice came over just in time. Ning Cheng had already noticed that Jian Sanshan's position was no longer in the same place as before. Instead, it was in a very prominent place in the middle of the guest hall. Sitting in the same row as Jian Sanshan was a Tao Transformation Holy Emperor with squinting eyes. This Tao Transformation Holy Emperor also had a spiritual storage bag next to him. Just like Jian Sanshan's spiritual storage bag, it didn't have any restrictions. Moreover, with a sweep of his spiritual consciousness, the divine grasses inside could be seen at a glance. The divine grasses in his spiritual storage bag were the same as Jian Sanshan's. They were all precious and not low-grade divine grasses. However, compared to those extinct god herbs that he had, the difference was not just a little bit. From the looks of it, this conspicuous seat was the seat for exchanging divine grasses. It should have been specially prepared for the alchemists who entered the fantasy fruit garden. Ning Cheng didn't go over immediately. Instead, only Jian Sanshan and this squint-eyed alchemist sat in the seat for exchanging divine grasses. In other words, only the 2 of them had come out of the fantasy fruit garden. He should be the 3rd alchemist to enter the fantasy fruit garden and get teleported out. Ning Cheng's gaze swept over the crystal screen and found that 6 doors leading to the 2nd floor of the fantasy fruit garden had opened. Moreover, 2 alchemists stood in front of the door leading to the 3rd floor. As long as an alchemist enters the fantasy fruit garden, they are not allowed to put restrictions on their spiritual storage bags. It seems that Pill Master Ning disdains this rule. A slightly gloomy voice spoke up with sarcasm. It was the 9 Revolutions' sacred Tao pond again. Ning Cheng's gaze swept over the few women from the 9 Revolutions' sacred Tao pond, and a trace of disgust flashed through his eyes. Jian Sanshan's voice transmission also reached Ning Cheng's ears in time. Brother Ning, there is indeed such a rule. Pill Master Ning, on behalf of Heaven Essence Sacred City, I would like to congratulate Pill Master Ning on entering the first floor of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. Elder Shu from the 9 Revolutions' sacred Tao pond is right. As long as an alchemist enters the Fantasy Fruit Garden, they are not allowed to put restrictions on their spiritual storage bags. Lu Jiexing spoke with a loud voice and a hint of righteousness in his tone. Ning Cheng's gaze had already swept over to the crystal screen. He saw that he had refined the top 3 most difficult medicinal pills. From this, he knew that it was only a matter of time before he entered the 13th door of the Fantasy Fruit Garden. Now that Lu Jiexing asked about it, Ning Cheng cupped his fists and said, "Because I didn't know much about the rules of the Fantasy Fruit Garden before, I had to put restrictions on my spiritual storage bag." Lu Jiexing showed a slight smile. "It doesn't matter. Just remove the restrictions on your spiritual storage bag." With a smile on his face, Lu Jiexing cursed Ning Cheng in his heart for being too cunning. Knowing that he and Jian Sanshan could enter the first floor of the Fantasy Fruit Garden, Lu Jiexing took out 6 Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pills. Although he might not necessarily suffer a loss, he definitely fell into Ning Cheng's trap. Since Ning Cheng could take out 6 Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pills, it meant that he had more on him. In other words, although these 6 Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation pills were important to him, they weren't that important to Ning Cheng. But because Cheng Hotian stood behind Ning Cheng, he didn't dare to say anything about taking away Ning Cheng's spiritual storage bag. If Ning Cheng didn't have Cheng Hotian behind him, he wouldn't have hesitated to take away Ning Cheng's spiritual storage bag. Ning Cheng showed a faint smile. "I didn't understand the rules of the Fantasy Fruit Garden before. But now that I've read the rules of the Fantasy Fruit Garden, I feel that the restrictions on my spiritual storage bag aren't wrong." The rules of the Fantasy Fruit Garden were clearly engraved in a corner of the crystal screen. Only a few people looked at these rules. But after listening to Ning Cheng's words, almost everyone's eyes fell on the corner of the crystal screen. The 3rd rule stated that in order to fairly distribute the divine grasses in the Fantasy Fruit Garden, pill masters who entered the Fantasy Fruit Garden had to use a spiritual storage bag. Moreover, the spiritual storage bag must not have any spiritual consciousness shielding restrictions. City Master Lu, may I ask what is the fair distribution of the divine grasses in the Fantasy Fruit Garden? Ning Cheng looked at Lu Jiexing and asked with a smile. Lu Jiexing was a wily old fox. How could he not understand Ning Cheng's meaning? He felt some regret in his heart. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have agreed to Ning Cheng's request to leave behind all the divine grasses. As long as he asked for 10% of the divine grasses, Ning Cheng would have no excuse. Now that all the divine grasses Ning Cheng obtained belonged to Ning Cheng, there was naturally no need for a fair distribution. If there was no need for a fair distribution, why would he need to let others know how many divine grasses he obtained? Ning Cheng knew that Lu Jiexing wouldn't answer, but he also didn't expect the other party to answer. He continued, "When I entered the Fantasy Fruit Garden, I negotiated with City Master Lu. I paid 6 top-grade spirit pills, but City Master Lu didn't want the divine grasses I obtained in the Fantasy Fruit Garden. I believe that all the fellow Taoists present here heard it clearly. Now that these divine grasses are all mine, I naturally have the right to place restrictions on them." River Luo Sacred Sex Tong Mingzi sneered, "The divine grasses in the Fantasy Fruit Garden have to be publicly traded. Even if it's yours, it has to be publicly traded. Otherwise, if no one is willing to take out divine grasses or Tao fruits to trade, what's the point of the Fantasy Fruit Garden's existence?" This person is River Luo Sacred Sex Elder Tong Mingzi, Guokaigus Master. Jian Sanshan's voice reached Ning Cheng's ears. Ning Cheng's gaze fell on Tong Mingzi and spoke up in a cold voice. "According to you, as long as you come here to participate in the Fantasy Fruit Garden, your things have to be publicly traded?" Tong Mingzi didn't fall for Ning Cheng's trick. "When did I say that my things have to be publicly traded?" I just said that the divine grasses belong to the category of things to be traded, so they have to be publicly traded. Chapter 972. Ning Cheng sneered, "It's my own divine grass. What can you do if I don't trade it? Why don't you find a rule in the illusion fruit garden that states that one must trade divine herbs for the illusion fruit garden?" Tong Mingzi had already witnessed Ning Cheng's boldness. He even dared to talk back to Man Huishan and Lu Jiexing, not to mention Tong Mingzi. If Ning Cheng were a coward, he wouldn't have killed Manjuran, nor would he have dared to kill Guokaiga. The fantasy garden truly didn't have any rules regarding forced transactions. Although Tong Mingzi felt angry, Ning Cheng followed up with a question. "Dao priest Tong Mingzi, let me ask you, did you come here to trade divine grasses or Dao fruits?" Facing Ning Cheng's rhetorical question, Tong Mingzi spoke up in a blunt manner. "I naturally came here to trade divine grasses or Dao fruits. If every pill master who enters the fantasy fruit garden is the same as you, then don't come to the fantasy fruit garden when it opens. Only those pill masters qualified to enter would be able to do so." Ning Cheng spoke up calmly. "Dao priest Tong Mingzi, you just said that the things you want to trade should be made public. I wonder what you want to trade for divine grasses? I guess it should be the treasures in your ring, right? In that case, why don't you make your storage ring public first? Anyway, it's also a transaction item. I promise that after you make it public, I will also make my divine grasses public." "You sophistry!" Tong Mingzi scolded angrily. Telling him to make his storage ring public was no different from courting death. Ning Cheng chuckled and stared at Tong Mingzi with disdain. "There's a saying that goes, don't do to others what you don't want done to yourself. You don't even want to make your own things public, yet you're here asking me to make mine public. What do you mean by this? Oh, by the way, you're not trying to find fault with me because I killed your unworthy disciple Guokaiga, are you? The Grand Essence Great Meat has a clear rule that no one is allowed to seek revenge because of the Great Meat. Do you want to violate the rules of the entire Grand Essence domain?" In any case, Tong Mingzi and Ning Cheng wouldn't become friends. Ning Cheng also didn't care about his thoughts and spoke without mercy. Ning Cheng's words were reasonable, but most of the people in the guest hall stood on Tong Mingzi's side. Everyone came here to buy divine grasses and Dao fruits. Naturally, they didn't want Ning Cheng to monopolize the divine grasses. Ning Cheng was not an idiot. He was very clear that he could not provoke public anger in this place. Just when everyone thought that Ning Cheng would put away the spiritual storage bag, Ning Cheng suddenly put the spiritual storage bag on the table next to Sword 3 Mountain. He then cupped his fists and walked around in a circle. "Fellow Dao friends, I know that everyone came here today to buy Dao fruits and divine grasses. Besides earning some spirit crystals to spend, I also want to make some contributions to my Grand Essence realm. Fortunately, I managed to enter the fantasy fruit garden and obtain some pretty good natural treasures. I've always taken the rise of the Grand Essence realm as my responsibility, so I naturally won't swallow these divine grasses for myself. I will leave these divine grasses here. After the other pill refiners come out of the fantasy garden, we will sell them together. I will sell these divine grasses at a cheaper price than others. I have a piece of good news for everyone. This time, I obtained some very precious divine grasses. I believe that my friends here will not be disappointed. The reason why I'm not opening the restriction right now is to maintain a sense of mystery and to add some entertainment to the fellow Taoists who come here." The angry Tong Mingzi suddenly felt dumbfounded. He naturally knew that even if he was in the wrong, no one would support Ning Cheng. He thought that Ning Cheng was hiding because he didn't want to take out these divine grasses. He didn't expect that Ning Cheng would willingly take out these divine grasses after teaching him a bit. This made his little advantage disappear without a trace. As long as one wasn't a fool, no one would stand up for Tong Mingzi at this time. Ching Ho Tian felt relieved. He feared that Ning Cheng was too young and didn't have a sense of propriety. If Ning Cheng wasn't willing to take out these divine grasses, it definitely wouldn't be a good thing for Ning Cheng. Sure enough, as soon as Ning Cheng's voice fell, it attracted a burst of praises. No matter how lofty Ning Cheng's words were, no one would feel disgusted at this time. Everyone could say lofty words. Previously, when someone opened the 13th door, people had already said lofty words several times. For the people present, as long as Ning Cheng could take out something, it didn't matter. Even if Ning Cheng said that he wanted to become the savior of the Grand Essence Realm, no one would say anything. At the entrance to the 3rd floor of the Fantasy Garden, as soon as Jing Han landed, he saw Do Jiangshi preparing to refine pills. Do Jiangshi didn't pay any attention to Jing Han at all. He just took out a pile of divine grasses and prepared to refine pills. It looks like you got a lot of good things. Your immortal corpse sect really hit it well. You got first place in the first 2 floors. But from the 3rd floor of the Fantasy Garden onwards, you'll have to follow me honestly. Jing Han's gaze swept over the divine grasses Do Jiangshi took out, and his expression and tone turned a bit cold. Do Jiangshi's zombie-like face didn't show any expression. Only after Jing Han finished speaking did he let out a sentence that sounded like it came from hell. No wonder you can take out the fake Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills pill recipe. Your great god pill sex mouth is much better than my immortal corpse sex. After that, he ignored Jing Han and directly brought out a flame and started refining pills. Jing Han's expression turned even gloomier. Ning Cheng had used a few waste pills to exchange for 2 5-elements heavenly fruits. It was a humiliation. Even if Do Jiangshi didn't use this to ridicule him, he wouldn't let Ning Cheng off after going out. At this time, another pill master who entered the Fantasy Garden came out. The cultivators in the guest hall were still talking about who had entered the 13th door. Because Ning Cheng had entered the Fantasy Garden, many people took the initiative to greet Ning Cheng and try to befriend him. Since Pill God Ning could enter the Fantasy Garden, it means that he has an outstanding understanding of the Tao of alchemy. In the upcoming alchemy conference, he would definitely stand out. He would most likely represent my Grand Essence Realm in the alchemy conference and win a precious spot to enter the Grand Change Realm. To Ning Cheng's surprise, Lu Jiexing acted as if he hadn't asked Ning Cheng anything and took the initiative to show goodwill to Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng only knew that the alchemy conference had something to do with entering the Grand Change Realm. As for the specific method to enter the Grand Change Realm, he wasn't very clear about it. Many thanks for City Master Li's auspicious words. Ning Cheng casually cupped his fists. People like Lu Jiexing were too shrewd. If not necessary, Ning Cheng didn't want to have a conflict with such a person. Previously, this person had almost killed him to please Man Huishan. Ning Cheng understood Lu Jiexing's thoughts very well. Lu Jiexing might have wanted to kill him to please Man Huishan, but this fellow most likely wanted to throw him out because of the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill. If he didn't have the ability to protect himself, Lu Jiexing would have locked him up and slowly interrogated him about the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill after everything in the Fantasy Garden ended. But since he wanted to kill him, why should he be polite to such a person? What surprised Ning Cheng was that so far, 5 pill masters had entered the 3rd floor of the Fantasy Garden. One had to know that only 6 people could enter the 3rd floor of the Fantasy Garden. Although one only needed Tao transformation spirit pills to open the 3rd floor of the Fantasy Garden, some Tao fruits already appeared on the 3rd floor. Among the many Tao fruits that appeared in the Fantasy Garden, most of them appeared on the 3rd floor of the Fantasy Garden. Another hour passed, and as another pill master was sent out, the door to the 4th floor of the Fantasy Garden opened. The pill masters who entered the Fantasy Garden this time are really powerful. All 3 doors on the 4th floor have opened. Seeing all 3 doors on the 4th floor open, someone exclaimed. If I didn't guess wrong, Pill Sage Jing Han and Pill Sage Lesham should have entered the 4th floor. What's puzzling is, who is the 3rd person? With all 3 doors to the 4th floor of the Fantasy Garden opened, the people in the guest hall became even more enthusiastic. This time, not only did the 13th door open, but 3 people also entered the 4th floor of the Fantasy Garden at the same time. The 4th floor meant higher-grade Tao fruits, which meant that their trip was not in vain. At this time, the voices of discussion became even quieter. Everyone was looking forward to seeing if someone could open the 5th floor of the Fantasy Garden. Shortly after the 3 pill masters entered the 4th floor of the Fantasy Garden, the 3 pill masters were sent out. Seeing the 3 pill masters sent out, Everyone's eyes fell in the direction of the Immortal Corpse sect. It was obvious that among the 3 people left in the fantasy garden, apart from Jing Han and Lesham, there was also the Dao sculpting pill sage Do Jiangshi from the Immortal Corpse sect. Ning Cheng's gaze didn't look at the Immortal Corpse sect. Instead, his gaze fell on the row of pill masters who were ready to sell divine grasses or Dao fruits. He was guessing if anyone had taken over their bodies. Since that fellow failed to take over his body, maybe he chose one of the other pill masters. The reason why he made such a guess was that after he entered the core of the fantasy garden, he had collected the most precious divine grasses and Dao fruits in one fell swoop. Even if that spirit soul stayed in the depths of the fantasy garden, without the divine grasses and Dao fruits, it wouldn't have been able to stay. Moreover, that spirit soul definitely wouldn't want to suffer such a big loss. How could it be willing? No matter who it was, taking away all the divine grasses and Dao fruits it had collected for so many years wouldn't be willing. Ning Qing remained cautious. That spirit soul was very powerful. The reason why he suppressed it was because that fellow had more guts than him and dared to break into his sea of consciousness to take over his body. No matter how powerful a spirit soul was, if it dared to enter his sea of consciousness to take over his body, it would only lead to death. However, this spirit soul didn't die after failing to take over his body. Instead, it escaped from his sea of consciousness. The few pill masters who came out behaved normally. At least, Ning Qing didn't see any clues. No wonder Dao friend Chun spoke up for the pill master who entered the 13th Dao gate. It turns out that that person might also be a pill master from your Immortal Corpse sect. The Immortal Corpse sect really hides itself deeply. It even has a Dao transformation pill sage, Fei Feng mocked loudly. Previously, he couldn't understand why the Immortal Corpse sect spoke up for the Great God Pill sect. The Holy Emperor from the Great God Pill sect had an ugly expression on his face. He was sure that the person who opened the 13th Dao gate of the fantasy garden was Jing Han from the Great God Pill sect. Now that Do Jiangshi from the Immortal Corpse sect suddenly appeared, he became a little uncertain about what Chun Fei had said before. While everyone was guessing, 2 figures landed beside the crystal screen in the hall one after the other. Everyone knew that these 2 pill masters had failed to pass the 5th level of the fantasy garden and were teleported out. Chapter 973. The people in the guest hall quickly saw that the 2 people who had been teleported out were Jing Han and Do Jiangshi. Jing Han was in front while Do Jiangshi was behind. Everyone looked at the 2 of them, and for a moment, the hall was silent. There was a 90% chance that one of them had opened the 13th door. The question was, who had opened the 13th door? The order of greeting was very important. Once the alchemy sage who had not entered the 13th door was greeted, it would make the other alchemy sage unhappy and it would be difficult to obtain the extinct divine spirit herbs or Dao fruits. Congratulations on your great harvest in the fantasy garden. 2 alchemy sages, please take a seat. Lu Jieshing stood up and broke the silence. Lu Jieshing was the city lord, so Jing Han and Do Jiangshi did not dare to neglect him. They politely greeted him before sitting down. Alchemy Sage Jing is a Dao transformation alchemy sage, so you must be the first to enter the fantasy garden. The Immortal Corpse sect congratulates alchemy sage Jing Han here. The Immortal Corpse sect's Chun Fei stood up and said with a mischievous smile. Everyone knew what Chun Fei meant. He believed that the Immortal Corpse sect's Do Jiangshi had entered the fantasy garden first, which was why he had the confidence to stand up and ridicule Jing Han. Jing Han's face turned cold and he said arrogantly, "Your Immortal Corpse sect was the first to enter the 1st and 2nd level of the fantasy garden, but I, Jing Han, entered the 3rd and 4th level first." He had a reason to be arrogant. Even an idiot knew that the earlier one entered the fantasy garden, the more precious divine spirit herbs and Dao fruits one would obtain. Similarly, the divine spirit herbs in the later levels of the fantasy garden were far more precious than those in the earlier levels. Do Jiangshi had entered the 1st and 2nd level of the fantasy garden first, but Jing Han had entered the 3rd and 4th level first. This was not the first time that Jing Han had entered the fantasy garden. He naturally knew why everyone's greeting had been a little slow when he and Do Jiangshi had come out. This was because the people in the hall wanted to know who had obtained the more precious Dao fruit between him and Do Jiangshi. What Jing Han had not expected was that after he said this, the people in the guest hall became enthusiastic. Unlike what he had imagined, almost everyone came to greet Do Jiangshi with cupped fists. That kind of politeness was just short of not calling him father. Do Jiangshi's zombie face was expressionless, but in the face of so many enthusiastic greetings, he had no choice but to stand up and squeeze out a smile on his zombie face. Jing Han's complexion turned even more unsightly. After these people greeted Do Jiangshi, they greeted him. It was obvious that they placed him behind Do Jiangshi. Lu Jiexing laughed. He even took the initiative to walk down and cupped his fists towards Do Jiangshi. Congratulations to Pil Sage Do for being the first to enter the illusion orchard and for opening the 13th door. Jing Han was startled when he heard this. He immediately understood why everyone was so enthusiastic towards Do Jiangshi. So this zombie face opened the 13th door of the magic garden? As a Dao transformation alchemy saint, he had naturally heard of the 13th Dao gate in the illusion orchard. Now that Do Jiangshi had opened the 13th door, the rumor of the 13th door had become a reality. That's not right. When he opened the door to the first level of the fantasy garden, there were clearly 11 doors left. In other words, Do Jiangshi had entered before him, but it was only one of the 12 doors. When did this zombie face open the 13th door? Do Jiangshi's stiff face stiffened even more when he heard Lu Jiexing's words. He quickly reacted and said doubtfully, "It's true that I was the first to enter the illusion orchard, but didn't I also open one of the 12 doors?" Immediately, he and Jing Han asked in shock, "Someone opened the 13th door of the illusion orchard?" The guest hall fell silent. The 13th door had not been opened by Do Jiangshi or Jing Han, so the only possibility was that Leshem had opened it. Just as everyone thought of Leshem, Leshem was teleported out and landed in the middle of the hall. Leshem did not feel special in the face of this warm greeting. Since he could enter the 4th level of the illusion orchard, people would naturally be enthusiastic towards him. What kind of place was the illusion orchard? It was a place rich in Dao fruits. Even though he was the 3rd person to enter the 4th level of the illusion orchard, he had obtained nearly 100 Dao fruits. He naturally did not need that many Dao fruits, so he had basically traded them away. However, Leshem quickly understood why everyone was so enthusiastic towards him. He asked in amazement, "Did someone enter the 13th door of the illusion orchard?" Leshem's words indicated that the person who opened the 13th door of the illusion orchard was not him, Jing Han, Do Jiangshi or Leshem. So who opened the 13th door of the illusion orchard? Everyone's eyes fell on the 8 people who came out first. Could the crystal screen have made a mistake? A sacred emperor asked in doubt. His words were immediately refuted by someone. The illusion orchard's crystal screen can't make a mistake. A total of 11 alchemy masters entered the illusion orchard this time. In fact, 2 of the 12 doors on the first level of the illusion orchard have not opened yet. This means that 1 person did not enter from the 12 doors on the first level. Many people's eyes swept over Ning Cheng. Although Ning Cheng was just a Dao sculpting alchemy saint, he was the most suspicious person. Ning Cheng had the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill and was friends with the Elixir Association's Cheng Ho Tian. Several people's eyes also fell on the 2 Dao Nourishment Alchemy Saints who came out first. The 2 Dao Nourishment Alchemy Saints did not wait for anyone to ask and took the initiative to stand up and deny entering the 13th door. The rest of the people who came out first also stood up and denied. Of the people who did not enter the 13th door of the illusion orchard, only Jian Sanshan and Ning Cheng did not stand up to deny it. Jian Sanshan did not stand up because he guessed that Ning Cheng should be the one who opened the 13th door of the illusion orchard. A Dao transformation alchemy saint who could help him refine a batch of special-grade Dao sculpting divine pills opened the 13th door of the illusion orchard. It was not surprising. Ning Cheng had long known that he could not hide from this matter. He was a Dao transformation alchemy saint. Even if all the alchemy masters were against him, he could not escape. Therefore, he had said in advance that he had obtained some precious divine herbs. Now that everyone's eyes were focused on him, he immediately sent a voice transmission to Jian Sanshan, asking him to stand up and deny it. When Jian Sanshan heard Ning Cheng's voice transmission, he also stood up and denied entering the 13th door. After Jian Sanshan denied it, Ning Cheng chuckled and said, "Don't tell me I entered the 13th door of the illusion orchard? When I went in, I was in a daze and seemed to have teleported out quickly. But it's true that I obtained some rare divine herbs." He did not deny it, nor did he confirm it. Even if others knew that he had entered the 13th Dao gate, he wouldn't come forward to claim it. Cultivating to this day, he had seen too many people snatch things by force. Maybe just because he opened the 13th door, it would cause others to snatch it. As long as he did not admit it, even if these people wanted to snatch it, they would have to spend time to find a reasonable excuse. Brother Ning, you're really honest. With your alchemy skills, I'm afraid it would be a bit difficult to open the 13th door. Maybe someone entered the 13th door but did not dare to come forward to admit it. An abrupt voice came out. Ning Cheng felt happy in his heart. He did not think that this person was ridiculing him. Even if this person ridiculed him, he did not care. After all, this person was speaking up for him. What Brother Percy said makes sense. I might not have opened the 13th door, but I did obtain some precious divine grasses. I'm ready to trade all of them. Ning Cheng laughed and cupped his fists towards Percy, who spoke up for him. Everyone here understood that whether Ning Cheng was willing to admit it or not, Ning Cheng should have been the one to enter the 13th door. Lu Jiesheng's heart burned with anger. If he knew that Ning Cheng could open the 13th door of the fantasy orchard, no matter how many benefits Ning Cheng gave him, he would never let Ning Cheng take all the Dao fruits. Lu Jiesheng looked at the other holy emperors in the hall. He really wanted someone to stand up and ask Ning Cheng to hand over the divine grasses. But no one stood up. Most of them even greeted Ning Cheng politely. Apparently, Ning Cheng's words had worked. He wanted to trade all the divine grasses he obtained. Jing Han's expression turned ugly. He found that he had underestimated Ning Cheng. This person seemed to have hidden himself deeper than Do Jiangshi. City Lord Lu, the fantasy orchard can now close. Let's announce the start of the trading of divine grasses and Dao fruits. I'm sure everyone is a little anxious. Seeing that Lu Jiesheng didn't make an announcement, Holy Emperor Extreme Void stood up and spoke. Lu Jiesheng said with a smile, "Yes, I'm too happy to have delayed this matter." While speaking, Lu Jiesheng raised his hand and put away the two array flags. The 3D crystal screen in the middle of the guest hall disappeared without a trace. The hall was already spacious, but now that the 3D crystal screen disappeared, it looked even more spacious. Pil God Ning, Amtsen Rushuan from the Grand Essence Sea's Sunken Fish Palace. I saw someone refine the Tranquil Bodhi pill and the 9 Orifices Heart pill. I wonder if Pil Sage Ning refined them? A pretty-looking female cultivator stood up and asked Ning Cheng with cupped fists. She even bowed to him. The Grand Essence Sea's Sunken Fish Palace was one of the top 10 sects in the Grand Essence domain. Since Tsun Rushuan showed such politeness to Ning Cheng with her Dao Essence cultivation, it meant that she had something to ask of Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng chuckled, "I was teleported out from the 2nd floor." Ning Cheng's meaning was clear. Since he was teleported out from the 2nd floor, how could he refine the Tranquil Bodhi pill and the 9 Orifices Heart pill? Tsun Rushuan's heart sank when she heard Ning Cheng's words. She suddenly felt some regret. She regretted asking Ning Cheng now. Even if she wanted to ask Ning Cheng, she should have waited until there was no one around. The divine grass needed for the Tranquil Bodhi pill was the Bodhi Earth Lotus. It was an extinct divine grass that couldn't be bought. How could Ning Cheng admit it? If Ning Cheng had admitted it, he wouldn't have been so vague about opening the 13th door of the fantasy orchard. She could only blame herself for being too impatient. Sure enough, more haste, less speed. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.